access project and the fact that the stakeholders are coming together, the welcome reception sponsors were the national airline Air Botswana, sharing this stage with the Botswana Tourism Organisation. Aviation route development cannot be done in a silo. It has to be a team approach. That is what we talk about all the time, and these are two vital cogs in that wheel. It's really, really important. It was a wonderful evening. We've got some images, I think, of last night, so you can enjoy those. We experienced the sights, of course, the sounds, the culture, the tastes of Botswana, and it's just amazing to see you all come together, because we just need an empty room, and everybody just has this amazing energy. And I always say, for me, it's like getting married every year. You put the guest list together, you do all the work, and then you turn up and you have this amazing experience, and it's just sad when it's all over. But thank you all for being here. Now, this evening, we will be going for our welcome reception. Is going to be sponsored once again, as it was last year, by the Puma Energy team. This is going to take place at the stunning Pakalane Golf Estate. It's not a long drive away. We've got some surprises waiting for you, some local artists that I know are particularly popular here, and some other things that Marla's, I've promised her I won't give the game away. Buses are going to leave from outside the venue at 6 p.m. sharp, and we have a police escort, so please be on the buses at 6. If you're not, then you will have to make your own way. After that, the buses will leave in one convoy, 6 p.m. sharp. Return transfers for those who want to get back start at 9 o'clock. Obviously, we all need to get an early night and be ready for the AviaDev morning run or walk tomorrow, which is going to take place in the National Stadium. So, throughout this year's event, we're going to be using technology. We used this yesterday, but there will be people in here who weren't actually in the room yesterday. This, you can answer the question that we have. It's a very simple question, and it's about your relationship personally with Botswana. Have you been here before? Do you live here? Is it your first time? We're just really interested. So we're going to run that for a minute. That will sit in the background. So get voting, and I'll show the results very, very shortly. We also know that a big frustration sometimes when you attend an event is that you can't access the photos. You see this person running around with this beautiful camera and you think, maybe a month, maybe I'll never see them. So we, over the last 3 years, have implemented a really, really interesting system that you upload a selfie and it will match that selfie to all the photos in which you appear. You can download them directly to your device and then upload them to my favorite platform, LinkedIn, or whichever ones you want. Obviously use, as you can see on the runway here, hashtag AviaDev, please. But then you can use those absolute conference quality photos and obviously show people just what it is that Marla's created in terms of this incredible staging with our teams that are all locally based. So thank you to the Braveheart team as well for doing that. While you're submitting your responses, I want to take this opportunity to recognize our sponsors. Without the sponsors, we could not do this event. We could not invest what we invest in the event. So our platinum sponsors, thank you so much. We have our gold sponsors as well, and we also have our silver sponsors. So all of you are fantastic. Thank you so much. They've all got stands in the other room in the exhibition. They will be taking meetings this afternoon. We also have a record airport turnout this year. We have many joining as exhibitors, but we also have those attending simply as delegates as well. And it's a real sign for us. We really want the airports here, obviously with the airlines, and now we're bringing in this new community of leasing companies and financiers as well. You'll also find there's color coding on the badges, so you can spot who's an airline, who's an airport, etc. as well. Thank you also to our official carriers for 2026. Many of you will have arrived on their services. We thank you all for your partnership and support connecting Botswana and Africa more generally to the region and the world. We literally couldn't be here without you. And yes, talking of airlines, we also have a record airline attendance. You can see the airlines going through on the screen behind me. And we are a very broad church at AviaDev. If you are a commercial airline, if you're private sector, if you're publicly owned, if you're a startup even, and you're credible, you are welcome. We are a very, very welcoming, open community, and we want to see you thrive. So it's not all about those that are established. We need the next generation of airlines that have got some incredible plans to connect this fantastic continent. And we have actually, from these airlines, 50 airlines, we have 110 airline delegates out of those 600, which is just an incredible attendance, especially given all of the things that are going on in the world. And with at 9:30, we're going to hear from Daniel, our macroeconomics speaker. He'll fill you in on all that, not that you need to, but for them to take the time out and give AviaDev once a year, 3 or 4 days of their time in the middle of everything that's going on is just amazing. So thank you so much to all of the airlines. Now, I mentioned a couple of times in my opening that 2 years ago we hosted in Windhoek. And friends and neighbors, of course, of Botswana, they actually are here in force, and they have the Namib Sky Lounge next door. So it's in the exhibition area in the back corners on both sides. Thank you to Charmaine and Sebulon for supporting us, being here and continuing that legacy and showing that the Tourism Board plays an active role in the route development in Namibia, and they are seeing the fruits of the labor of 2 years ago. So 2 years from now, we hope it's going to be very similar, but Botswana is well on its way, and we just hope this is another injection. Okay, let's show those Slido results. So, wow, there we go. This is very interesting. So 50% of people, it's their first time in Botswana. The amount of people who've said, I've always wanted to come, I've not had the reason to come. Obviously, we've got some locals, and there's some that are here all the time, which is great as well. So yesterday, this is the official opening, but we had an incredibly busy day yesterday. We used this stage in the morning for the first, but definitely not last, AviaDev Finance and Leasing Forum. Thank you so much to the moderators, the speakers, the delegates, the advisory board members that helped me put that program together. And I really look forward to seeing those deals coming during the meetings this afternoon and hearing about these things over the coming days. We also partnered with somebody that I have known for many years, Captain Komotso Fatsima, who was the first female military pilot here in Botswana. I read her book, I think 6, 7 years ago, and I said, wait, if we ever come to Botswana, we're going to do something together. She has a Dare to Dream is her foundation, and also with Daryl and the NGAP Academy, who are based doing pilot training at the airport. They brought in all of the equipment. You saw the aircraft outside yesterday, and we brought in 60 learners from the local schools, and then 20 slightly older students as well to take part in some outreach activities, paper aeroplane competitions, robotics, airplane design. We'd love to do something that gives back to the local community. So I thank you to both of them for everything that they did putting this together. Some of you went out yesterday afternoon and got to see the city as well. So we did have a city tour put on by the Botswana Tourism Organization. Thank you for organizing that. And we got some great feedback last night at the welcome reception. So thank you, BTO, for sorting all of that. And something else that we did yesterday, or actually it started on Tuesday, is the Botswana Air Access team, along with their local partners and partners of the Air Access team, MacAir and Africa's Eden, hosted the airline VIP experience. So many of you don't know about this because it's not in the agenda, but this is an opportunity for our host country to give the airlines that really they believe are going to be fundamental, instrumental in their future connectivity, an amazing experience immediately before AviaDev. And they flew up in 2 Cessnas from MacAir up into Maun, into the Delta, and they saw some incredible sights and had some incredible experiences with the animals and the game drive. So thank you, Gillian, thank you, Keith at MacAir for doing that. And I'm sure some of you, thank you guys, some of you have either been already, I know I've heard some feedback people are going, or they're going this weekend, which is partly why we finished the event on a Friday, so that you can spend a little more time. And I would absolutely recommend heading north and seeing just the most magnificent Okavango Delta and the Chobe area as well. Now, our theme this year is Gateway to Opportunities, and I feel that we've represented that quite well in the conference program, but we create that conference program with our advisory board. So these are the individuals. You'll have met many of them. What we do is we get together in about November, December. We ask them a bit of a questionnaire, and then we all get together virtually and we discuss what should we be talking about at AviaDev this year. So Marla and I are not coming up with this program in isolation. We are using and listening to you guys. So if you have feedback of what you'd like to hear, there will be a post-event survey. Reach out to me directly. We want to build this for you. It's not for us, it's for you. We're simply the vessel. You guys are coming and you're doing the real work. So thank you. A massive round of applause for our advisory board, please. And Lily's on there from Botswana, of course, from Hatab as well, which is great. Now, a little bit of housekeeping before we get on with the show. So at AviaDev, we don't believe in clashing content, and therefore we only deliver conference sessions in the morning. So from now until 1 p.m., we're going to be in here. But there will be free-flowing barista coffee outside. You've been to the juice terminal, as we're calling it, outside. So just help yourself. If you need to have a chat, you need to take a call, pop in and out, bring your coffees back in. And please, we'd ask for your attention this morning, because at 1 o'clock we break for lunch and we won't ask for you to come back into the room. So please do give us our attention, because we've worked really hard to put on an amazing program. We've got some incredible sessions lined up. Now, during the event, if you need any help, I think you've met most of them, but you will be able to find the AviaDev team. These are my team. So full-time at AviaDev, we do say this every year, to put this conference together is I'm full-time. Marla actually is only part-time on AviaDev, and that is it. Outside of that, everybody else you see here has come and either been an ambassador before or has taken time off work, is volunteering. We've got people from Gambia, from Kenya, from Namibia, obviously from Botswana, Nigeria, Ghana, Slovakia, UK, Malawi. So we're, again, a big team. But if you need anything at all, they are just the most amazing people. Find them, they will help you, and if they can't help you, they'll find somebody who can. So massive thank you for what you've done already, guys. Thank you, team. I'm also delighted to be running our ambassador program, which we're going to outline in more detail. But if you haven't already, make sure that you meet the future of our industry in Botswana's aviation, the two winners of our ambassador competition, which is Passionate and Rethabile, who will be taking to the stage tomorrow, and they'll be up here sharing their stories. So give them your support, because of course it's very daunting for them, but they're incredibly confident, and we're so proud of what they've already done this week. They've been part of our team already for 3 days, which is fantastic. So that's it from me, and thank you all for being here. So it's now with great pleasure I'm going to introduce you to our first speaker to take the stage and welcome you to Botswana. That is Captain Tuto Toisi, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Civil Aviation of Botswana. So please join me in welcoming him to provide his opening remarks.
I still want to have 2 hours, right? The Vice President of the Republic of Botswana, His Honor Ndaba Gaolathe, Assistant Minister of Transport and Infrastructure, Honorable Gaolathe Atamelang, Assistant Minister of Trade and Entrepreneurship, Honorable Baratiwa Matote, AviaDev Africa CEO, John Howell, senior government officials, board members of SOEs, captains of industry, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Civil Aviation Authority of Botswana, I warmly welcome you to Gaborone and AviaDev Africa 2026. We're extremely honored to host the aviation community in our capital city and grateful for your presence this morning. Now in its 10th iteration, AviaDev Africa is Africa's leading platform for air service development, uniting tourism and aviation stakeholders to shape our continent's connectivity. As the Civil Aviation Authority of Botswana, our role is to ensure an environment that is safe, reliable, efficient, and is responsive to the sector's needs. Safety will always remain the foremost pillar of aviation, but beyond safety, aviation authorities also have an important role to play in enabling growth, supporting facilitation, strengthening confidence, and ensuring the whole ecosystem, aviation ecosystem, is prepared for opportunities. This commitment led to the creation of the Botswana Air Access and our successful bid to host Aviation Africa 2026. We therefore extend our very sincere appreciation to the government of Botswana, the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure, Botswana Air Access partners, AviaDev Africa team, our sponsors, and all our partners who have made this conference possible. Such an event requires significant coordination and commitment, and we acknowledge everyone involved in welcoming the global aviation industry to Gaborone. We're especially pleased to welcome airline representatives, destinations, airports, and aviation partners whose participation is central to advancing connectivity across Africa. Your work is essential to the passenger journey, network efficiency, and the development of reliable, competitive, and sustainable air services. The presence of tourism and investment stakeholders highlights aviation's very critical role in destination growth and the stimulation of the wider economic development. As the Civil Aviation Authority of Botswana, we remain committed to working with the industry in a spirit of professionalism, openness, and collaboration. So over the coming days, I hope you will experience our country's hospitality, our professionalism, and our readiness to engage with you. As the IATA Regional Vice President, Kamil Al-Awadi, once said, Africa's aviation potential is immense. With the third fastest growth rate in the world over the next 2 decades, the continent could serve more than 400 million passengers annually by 2044. It is therefore in this regard that I hope that your time here produces outcomes in the form of new and expanded route networks, new conversations, deeper partnerships, and a stronger sense of what is possible for our continent's future connectivity. Once again, let me welcome you to Botswana. Welcome to Gaborone, Karibuni sana, Akwaba, Marhaba fi, et bienvenue à tous à Botswana. Welcome to Africa. Welcome to AviaDev Africa 2026. It is now my honor to invite the Assistant Minister of Transport and Infrastructure, Honorable Gaolathe Atamelang, to present an overview of the Botswana Air Access.
Thank you so much, Mr. Toisi. Master of Ceremonies, the Vice President of the Republic of Botswana, Your Honor, Mr. Nkosinati Ndaba Gaolathe, the Honorable Minister of Trade and Entrepreneurship, Ramathote, AviaDev CEO, Mr. John Howell, senior government officials present, captains of industry, representatives of airlines, airports companies, tourism authorities, investment agencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Dumelang, good morning. On behalf of the government of Botswana, it is my distinct honor and privilege to welcome you to this important gathering of aviation leaders, airlines, airports, tourism authorities, investors, route development partners. Your presence here in Botswana reflects not only Africa's growing momentum within the regional global aviation sector, but also Botswana's emergence as a strategic destination for air access, tourism, and investment. Air connectivity remains at the heartbeat of modern trade and tourism. It facilitates cross-border exchange, unlocks access to world-class destinations, strengthens regional and global partnerships. For Botswana, hosting AviaDev 2026 is therefore more than just a privilege, but a strategic opportunity to showcase our country, strengthen relationships with carrier partners, and accelerate the work of Botswana Air Access Project. Botswana Air Access Initiative was launched in August of 2024 by the Civil Aviation Authority of Botswana as a collaborative private partner sector initiative. What has made this initiative particularly impactful is the successful mobilization of key national stakeholders, including Botswana Tourism Authority, Botswana Investment and Trade Center, Business Botswana, and the Travel Agents Association of Botswana, the Hospitality and Tourism Association of Botswana, and Air Botswana, all united by a common objective to enhance Botswana's regional and international connectivity. This initiative is founded on a clear understanding that improved air access is a catalyst for economic growth, tourism expansion, trade, investment, job creation, skills development, exchange of global competitiveness. Every new or expanded route improves travel, opens markets, strengthens supply chains, supports sectors ranging from hospitality all the way to logistics. It is for this reason that we have adopted a deliberate, collaborative, and coordinated approach to air service development. Botswana Air Access is providing carriers with stronger market intelligence, passenger cargo data, coordinated stakeholder support, route marketing assistance, and single point of contact for engagement with our country. For this model is already yielding positive results. Since its inception in 2024, we have seen important network developments across our international airports. Airlink launched 3 times a week service connecting Cape Town and Gaborone in April 2025, strengthening access between Botswana and one of Southern Africa's most important tourism and business getaways. We saw South African Airways introduce a service between Gaborone and Johannesburg in November of 2025, improving frequencies on Botswana's most important regional corridor. We also witnessed Ethiopian Airlines launching a service connecting Maung to Addis Ababa, linking Okavango Delta with one of Africa's most powerful aviation hubs. ProLight Zambia introduced Lusaka Livingston Maun service on the 1st of May of 2026. This service will support regional tourism flows, and it will make it easier for passengers to commute Botswana and Zambia in a single itinerary. Despite this achievement, Botswana Air Access continues to engage both existing and prospective carriers from across Africa, Europe, North America, and Asia in efforts to further strengthen Botswana's global connectivity. The tangible outcome achieved has thus far demonstrated that the initiative is successful, converting strategic engagements into new and expanded air services. The impact is visible in seat capacity to and from our international airports. Botswana international capacity is projected to increase from approximately 300,000 seats in 2023 to more than 607,000 in 2026. This represents an increase of 218,000, a growth rate of about 56%. AviaDev 2026 gives us a platform to build on this momentum. As host of AviaDev, Botswana is proud to welcome airlines, airports, investors, destination partners for the first time. For over the next 2 days, Gaborone will present compelling business opportunities completed by experiences such as the VIP tour of the Okavango Delta. These experiences underscores the important reality that successful route development depends not only on data and commercial viability, but also on the confidence in the destination itself. Botswana globally renowned ecosystems, from the Okavango Delta, the Chobe National Park, to the Makgadikgadi Pens and the Kalahari Desert. This can only realize their full tourism potential and economic potential if they are accessible. This mission of Botswana Air Access is therefore to make travel to and within Botswana easier, more affordable, and more efficient through partnerships across both the public and the private sector. To our airline partners, Botswana is open for business. We stand ready to share data, build viable business cases, and support sustainable routes that will deliver mutual value and long-term growth. To our tourism and private sector partners, your collaboration is indispensable. Every successful route is made possible when destinations unite with shared purpose and commitment. To all the delegates gathered here today, AviaDev 2026 must serve as a platform for meaningful engagement, enduring partnerships, and sustainable long-term growth for African aviation. In closing, I wish to extend my sincere appreciation to the Civil Aviation Authority of Botswana, all the Botswana Air Access stakeholders, AviaDev team, our sponsors, and our airline partners for making this event possible. Let us use this occasion to strengthen partnerships, champion new airline routes, and firmly position Africa at the center of global aviation connectivity. God bless Botswana and God bless Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Wonderful start. Thank you, Captain Tuisi. Wonderful as well. And we're now going to do something a little bit different with the Honourable Vice President, which is we are going to actually do a fireside chat. So I would love to invite you to join me up on the stage. So please, if you could rise, take a seat. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Vice President, welcome to AviaDev.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning and welcome to Botswana, to you and the delegates.
It's a real pleasure to be here. And I think what we'd like to do now is build on the conversations and the statements that were made by obviously your partners there in government. I think many delegates that attend the event understand that Botswana, of course, is a landlocked nation, and it's chosen to host AviaDev, which of course we would like to think is Africa's leading air connectivity conference. I'd like to understand the role of air connectivity in achieving what I believe you refer to as the true north as your ambition. Can you tell us a little bit about what this true north is and how air connectivity fits in?
Yeah. Well, every country has a vision of where they see themselves. So as Botswana, our true north is to build a high-income Botswana that is diversified, that is digitally enabled, in which every single citizen is employed, is empowered, and is fulfilled. And this is not just an aspiration. In fact, every program, every project, every policy uses as a yardstick this true north. Every project, every policy must ask the question, does this diversify the economy? Does this create jobs? Does this empower our people? So this is the true north. Now, this true north is not enough to have an aspiration. You actually have to build the systems and the strategy to achieve that aspiration. So as part of that, we have developed what we call the Botswana Economic Transformation Program, which, maybe to sum up the Botswana Economic Transformation Program, Botswana traditionally has been very good at policy conceptualization and policy formulation. And we could afford to be good at concepts and good at formulation and not so good at execution. We could afford that because for a long time we were awash with diamonds. But now, with the plummeted diamond markets, I would put it to you that the idea or the conversation around diversification is no longer an intellectual nice to have. It's an existential question. We diversify or we perish. So part of this Botswana Economic Transformation Program is to assist build Botswana, the government system, the private sector, to be able to execute at scale, which is something that we haven't done well in the past. Executing at scale. For us, it has meant having an international and local call for investment ideas, for which we received about 7,000 investment ideas.
Wow.
Some of them executable, some of them not so executable. So through this process, we were then able to fathom that the engines of economic growth will actually come from 6 sectors, mainly tourism, agriculture, infrastructure, energy, financial services, digitalization, and then we have what I call 3 social sectors. Now, once we have discovered these engines of economic development, because they are coming from the ground, they're coming from the private sector, they're coming from entrepreneurs, they're coming from communities. What we then did was to lab them, to put them under what we call economic laboratories, where we brought all the decision makers under one roof. Decision makers on licensing, decision makers on land, the entrepreneurs themselves, the financiers, and we said to them, we have these, we had these 7,000 investment ideas filtered down ruthlessly and prioritized to 186. Give us, we said, we give you 4 weeks. 4 weeks to give us an execution map for each of these 186 projects, which execution map involves government functioning as one and government functioning in unison with the private sector. So we are looking at this true north being executed through this mechanism and system that is called the Botswana Economic Transformation Program, which is not just a mechanism, but also a human resource infrastructure that brings down the silos, brings the decision makers together, very clear roadmap. So this is the true north, and this is where we're going. And one would say 186 projects may not be enough, but you know, in life, you don't try to boil the ocean. You've got to start somewhere. So BTAP is starting with a specific number of projects, graduate them towards becoming executable, execute them, and then you diffuse that as a culture into the rest of the government and private sector system. So we create an execution at scale system and culture in Botswana. And we believe this is what has been lacking in the Botswana system, and this is the direction that we are taking. And hopefully, if we implement just a proportion of these, they should be, because we've actually quantified them, they should be able to unlock at least 50 billion US dollars and hundreds and thousands of jobs over 6 or 7 years. So this is the thinking, and this is what we are doing, build a Botswana that can now execute at scale.
Fantastic. Many of our delegates may not know that, not being just busy enough being Vice President, you're also the Minister of Finance. So you've got skin in the game in this respect, and it is that diversification. You know, we've represented in our staging and our branding, we hope, Botswana. You can see the diamonds, the zebras, the colours of the Okavango, the Kalahari, etc. We put a lot of thought into this, but as you say, it's about diversification, and it's also about building an enabling environment. That's what you're saying, is remove the roadblocks, and there's a lot of similarities there to what we talk about all the time, and it leads us quite nicely into talking about the aviation side, because there are so many debates. You may know that the first discussions about having a single connected African air transport market go back to 1988, before many people in this room were even born. And of course, we hear at every conference how many delegates had to travel outside of Africa to come back into Africa. And I think the question I've got for you is, what leadership can Botswana show to its neighbours to say that we're open for business, we can unlock intra-African connectivity and then support jobs, as you said, for the next generation?
Well, I think back to the true north, aviation for us and connectivity for us is not a peripheral concept. It's actually right at the core of the Botswana Economic Transformation Program. You may think of us as being landlocked, but we actually think of ourselves as being land-linked.
It's also very wet in the north, let's be honest. There's a lot of water up there, not so much down here.
Yes. So we have had the fortune of having inherited some of the most beautiful natural assets, the beautiful Okavango Delta, the golden sunrises and the golden sunsets, the egret birds and the heron birds, the savanna lands and the baobab trees, the beautiful dances and the poetry of our people. But it's not enough to be beautiful, and it's not enough to have those assets if it is not easy for people to access that, if it's not easy for people to come in, if it's not easy for people to come and trade with us. Not easy but you know, life is not just about trade and economics and so on. One of the things that is important for us, certainly for me, is to have an Africa that know each other. We have to know each other. People in Botswana have to know people in Zambia. We have to know each other. It's only when we know each other well do we then find reason and excuses to do business with each other, to trade with each other. And that is how we connect ourselves, connect Africa first. And once we have connected Africa as an African bloc, once we have connected regions, SADC regions, then we're able to connect with the rest of the world from a position of strength. So connectivity in that sense, for us, it's about building the ecosystem so that it's easy to access Botswana, so that it's affordable to access Botswana, so that we collectively work with our neighbors. Different ways of providing leadership. If you look at continental institutions like the African Development Bank, for a long time they had a certain type of developmental focus, but now Botswana being a member of the African Development Bank, we are supporting President Sidi's drive for Africa Aviation, making funding available with a $7 billion US plan to be able to finance airport infrastructure, aviation infrastructure, but also to finance knowledge and skill development in that sector. So one part of our responsibility is to ensure that we catalyze, we support programs like these in institutions like the African Development Bank. But also, we have a responsibility to do away with this sense of national borders, with this sense of possessiveness. National borders are imaginary. We are all one people, we are all part of one family. And the sooner we realize that once we learn to do things together and collectively, there's no reason why Botswana, Zambia, South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique shouldn't be built in a way that is seen as one tourism destination. And I think one of the fortunes, if I may go personal, one of the fortunes of my life is that, my father, originally from Botswana, and I know great-great-great-grandparents from Zimbabwe, but my mother also from South Africa. So I grew up not having a sense of national borders. I grew up believing that we are one person, and I think we need to allow it to manifest in how we plan, how we execute, and also how we harmonize our regulatory frameworks, how we harmonize our economic plans. So I think the idea of providing leadership in order to promote connectivity should really be leadership around bringing down these man-made silos and man-made borders and working collectively as a region and as a continent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that's very brave, first of all, and somebody always has to step out first. And there's more that unites us than divides us as human beings, as you say, and having that attitude, which we've seen is exactly what we want to do here, which is really facilitate those conversations and, like you say, move beyond that as much as anything else. You touched on the tourism side, and the tourism offering here is world-renowned. This is possibly the, not to get myself in trouble, but definitely from a pricing perspective, maybe the premium safari destination on the globe. And the Okavango is the world's largest inland delta. It's got all of those things you talked about with the culture, the wide open spaces. We saw it on the video. Many people have experienced it already. The challenge is capacity in terms of, as that connectivity grows, how do you ensure the benefits reach the ordinary Botswana and the rural communities, but also protect the environment that makes Botswana what it is? How do you balance those?
Well, you talk about not wanting to get into trouble.
Sorry, I'll take the fall.
Yes. Let me say to you that I don't think, and if I may say so myself, there's any place as beautiful under the sun as the Okavango. And I say so confidently because I caught wind of a rumor that a number of the CEOs actually visited Okavango, and I am more than certain that they will agree that there's no place under the sun as beautiful as the Okavango.
Do we agree? You can see them all here.
Let me just say, as my grandfather would say, there is nothing more potent. There's nothing that can or has the potential or the potency to empower individuals or communities more than education and skills. Skills and education. Even the Bible says, seeth a man with skills, he will come before kings. So the biggest priority is always to build skills, to build an education ecosystem that actually educates our people and gives them the skills. And Botswana, for a long time, education has been the highest priority. It continues to be the highest priority, and we are doing everything to keep it as the highest priority. So that's the first, in terms of what we do to empower local communities. But also, there are also categories, particularly in the Okavango area and other places of Botswana, categories around land and tenure concessions, and categories which favor citizens. And that gives citizens access and rights to be owners. We also have policy around management of natural resources, which policies promote the involvement of communities. And the involvement of communities takes various forms, including ownership, including shareholding and revenues, which revenues can be used to be planted back into those communities. But also it is becoming increasingly clear that there are so many value chain opportunities since these are pristine sites and pristine resorts, so is the food that is required, the logistics that is required, and creating opportunities for these communities to partake in those value chains is a big priority for us. But also, an important part of empowering communities is spreading out the infrastructure. We are looking at the expansion of the Maung airports. We are looking at putting in place different infrastructures. But again, you know, in the new Botswana, with the new True North and with the Botswana Economic Transformation Program, it is not just about ideas, putting up infrastructure. It is setting up so that we have the capacity to execute. And this is where we have seen the involvement of the BETP, Secretariat and ecosystem assisting the government system to be able to execute through the chain of the development of these infrastructures.
Fantastic. So I've got one last question for you, which is, let's look to the future, right? We're coming to the end of this. We're about to kickstart AviaDev. If we were to gather here in 10 years' time, I've chosen that as an arbitrary time, maybe you've got more aggressive targets, what would you want this moment, Botswana hosting AviaDev Africa, to have set in motion? And more importantly, what is your message to those airlines that are here today that maybe are considering connectivity to Botswana? Why should they take the plunge, be brave, and start service or expand service?
Well, 10 years from now, it is not only my hope, but looking at how they are smiling, it's also my certainty that we will be able to develop deep partnerships and deep collaborations, which partnerships and collaborations will help us go a long way to building the ecosystems, and not just the routes, but the corridors as well. And I also hope that in 10 years' time, and what we would have been able to achieve is also to move ahead of the curve. The type of decisions that I hope we can make immediately from here are the decisions where we make decisions about infrastructure that moves ahead of the demand, that builds infrastructure not for the current traveler, but for future travelers. It would be my hope that in that 10 years, we would be able to create an atmosphere where Africans know more about Africa than they know about the world beyond Africa, and where it's easier to travel within Africa than to have to travel to Europe in order to travel to Africa. So my message to the airlines would be that yes, we know Botswana might appear like it's a small market, but it's a strategic market with a responsible and credible governance system. I would hope that they would not just invest for the now, but they would invest for the long term and partake in actually going ahead of the curve and creating the demand. To the airports, the same, that they would partner with us, not just to build airports, but to build experiences for those who come and want to work with Botswana. And the same to the investors. We don't have the illusion as the government of the day that we have the answers. Absolutely not. The answers are with the investors, the answers are with the communities, with the entrepreneurs, with ordinary people. Our job is to facilitate. Our job is to be handheld so that we can handhold. Our job is to nourish those ideas and to do what we can to take them as close to executable as we can. So we are looking for partnerships. We cherish partnerships. We know that as a country we would never be able to make it, to realize our true north without partnerships, without new insights, without new experiences, without deep pockets, without. So thank you very much. If I may,
Please.
if I may put a personal, this CEO here of the Air Botswana, who is a PhD in aeronauticals, I grew up with him. So one of the things that he has always loved actually has been airplanes. So by default, I think I know quite a bit about planes, and I'm even particular. You know, I love the A380.
Oh. Sorry, they don't make that anymore.
I know the.
I'm sure they can sell you something else. Yeah.
I love the 380. I always ask them when I'm flying, which one is it? I love the 777.
Phew. That's good, Neil. Neil's here from
Boeing. I love the 777 as well. But he has been trying to convince me that the 787 is better because it's quieter. But I understand the 777 is more economic, is more efficient.
Careful. other OEMs are available, by the way. That's the disclaimer. So yeah. You're getting yourself in trouble here with the guys.
I may be getting myself into trouble, but I must say to you, I'm already in trouble. You know, I'm already in trouble. We have a beautiful country here, which has challenges that will require a lot from us as a collective. So I'm already in trouble in that sense. But I also have so much hope and belief that not only will we come out of where we are, but we will do something special, something truly special. I believe we have the people, we have the excellence, we have the mindsets, we have the youth, we have the talent, and we have the partners today. How I wish I could shake each one's hand today and convince them to come and work with us in Botswana. Thank you very much.
So I think, you know, the message is better be brave. Number one, you've said that the true north is brave. You know, it's better to seek forgiveness than ask permission. That's how we get stuff done. Let's bulldoze through. Let's make that dent very quickly. I've come a cropper with that one as well. But it's been my distinct honor to spend this last 25 minutes with you. It was a new format that we wanted to try something a little bit different. I'm so happy that you were willing and able to grace us with your presence and share your expertise and your vision for this country, because having been 3-4 times now, I'm a believer. You've convinced me, but unfortunately I'm not an airline CEO, so I'm not necessarily the right guy, but you've convinced us. We've brought them here. Now it's down to Botswana to do its thing and to present those business cases, and then we can sit back and we can reflect in 5-10 years' time on what the impact was. But it's been fantastic, so thank you so much for your time. The Honourable Vice President does actually have to leave, I believe, straight after this engagement. You are welcome to come back at any time. So if we can all stand for his departure, that would be fantastic.
Well, before they stand...
Oh, okay. You don't have to go. Sit.
Before they stand, I don't want to wait for a special occasion to say to you, thank you very much for the work that you do for Africa and the work that you have done by being able to organize such a pristine event for Botswana. I also want to go on record as having thanked all the delegates who are here, who I know are very important people in their organizations, and thank you very much to all of you for finding the time to at least come and listen to our Botswana story. And we hope that you will be proud one day and be counted among those who were part of that story in making this a very, very special nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was a pleasure. Yes, you can stay, you can stay. Daniel is staying. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Okay, now, on with the show. Thank you for staying. This is fantastic, because I know you are not going to be disappointed. This is a lovely way to start. So, to understand where aviation is going, and where Africa is headed, and how we're all impacted, we first need to understand the economic and political forces that shape the fortunes of this vast and incredibly complex continent. Daniel Silk is one of Africa's most respected political and economic analysts. Many of you book your tickets each year just to hear from Daniel, and I know you won't be disappointed. He's here to bring the energy, give us the big picture. So without further ado, Daniel, the floor is yours. Please welcome Daniel to the stage.
Right, everybody, let's get the sound up and running. You can all hear me? What a wonderful gathering this is. Thank you very, very much, John and AviaDev, for having me back on the 10th anniversary of your event. It's a testimony to your dedication, I might add, that you've got a full room and you've got an enthusiastic audience, not for me, but for the African aviation sector in particular. So thank you, John. Your Excellency, Deputy President, Vice President, what a motivational 20 minutes, I must say, listening to you. And I'm going to talk more broadly. Sometimes they call me the world's only demotivational speaker because I talk about politics and economics, which often, of course, runs contrary to what we would like to hear. So you take a risk when you have me, and John has risked having me on a platform for a number of years, and every year I never know whether he's going to invite me back, and I face the same uncertainty this year as well. I come from Cape Town. It's my first visit, I might add, to Botswana, so I'm delighted to be here. I come from Cape Town, for goodness sake, and I haven't been to Botswana. It is a shameful admission from me, and I shall be back in future to see more of this beautiful country. Now, I'm going to give you a macro overview, which I normally do at AviaDev and at other conferences. I've called the talk today Overcoming Pressure, Africa 2026. And I think ultimately when we look at the world today, obviously for all of you in the aviation sector in particular, it's been a particularly turbulent time just over the last few months for obvious reasons. And I'll come back to that over the course of this discussion, because the themes about input costs and especially about oil is uppermost in the minds for any operator right now. But I think when you look at what's happened over the course of the last few months or so, and you have to have a little bit of fun with presentations as well, for goodness sake, and have a sense of humor about that. That, by the way, is the White House lawns during the Easter ceremony. The Easter bunny, by the way, is on the right of that particular picture. You do have an understanding that there has been substantial change in the world, not just because of the United States, but because of other global factors as well. But we've seen the United States take a certain position in the world which has unleashed a number of consequences, of which all of us in this room, whether I'm speaking here in Botswana or whether I'm speaking somewhere else, all of us feel together across multiple industries. From the interventions in Venezuela earlier this year, from the continued, and this was a tweet put out by the American president just 2 weeks ago, so he hasn't forgotten about his aspirations for Greenland. There's a connectivity challenge for airlines, a Greenland Botswana direct connection. I challenge any of you to announce that during the course of this conference. But these issues continue to plague the world. The disagreements between the United States and Europe, the tensions certainly between the US and NATO as well, creating an underlying sense of geopolitical geopolitical risk, which all of us feel in one way or another. So what a few months it's been. And if that's not enough, everybody, there's even more. The world is shifting. There's a new power on the block, so to speak, the rise of a very powerful China. The manufacturing and technological abilities of the Chinese are threatening, in the broader sense, the leadership position of the United States in its post-Second World War period. And when you've got a new rising power, with that comes a degree of global tension, and we see that playing itself out across the world in various formats, even here on this particular continent. So the world is in a transitionary phase. And certainly for the big two powers, the United States and China, coming to terms with that, living together with each other, is going to be critical in the future. Perhaps we've seen this concept of friends and enemies become frenemies in a sense, and we will see competition between these two powers going forward. Now, for the United States and China, of course, both sides seem to think that they have the upper hand. Well, it's not so easy anymore, and we might see this game being played for some time to come. And it's not just the US, it's not just China. By the way, there are those robots now in Moscow just last week actually saluting the Russian president as it happens. Of course, rising nationalism plagues certain countries, and that also plays itself out from a geopolitical sense. So good heavens, everybody, you really are in a rough global environment. Forget about your particular business attached to aviation. But of course, and then came this, the issue that's on the uppermost, I would imagine, of most of the operators here in this room, the impact and effect of the Gulf crisis, the war, certainly between the United States, Israel, and Iran. Now, many people say to me, well, Daniel, you're a political analyst. How long is this going to last? And I do mention the fact that, if you can answer the question, how long is a piece of string? Then, come up and do my talk here on stage, because it's very difficult as an analyst to be able to really predict issues and events going forward. And it's even more difficult to predict today, given the unpredictable nature, certainly of the US president, which changes tweet by tweet. And that's the tweet just from about 24 hours ago when President Trump spoke about they've taken too long to negotiate a deal that would have been great for them. Now they will have to pay the price. And we've seen overnight an escalation again of attacks, obviously impacting the security situation in the Gulf. For all of us here in the room, you've become very familiar with the Strait of Hormuz. It's a geographical feature on the world that you might not have known existed before. Now you certainly do. And now you certainly know the extent of the reliance upon large parts of the world on the safe traffic of petroleum and related products coming out of that particular region. And again, to use a card-playing metaphor, when you are a country like Iran facing a large army like the United States with all of the military and technological might, what do you have in your arsenal? Well, you might have missiles, but what you have is the potential to block this key energy route in the world. That's your leverage. And certainly Iran have played that leverage pretty well. In fact, you could very well argue that Iran has certainly taken that art of the deal and really implemented against the United States in this particular conflict. So when we look at all of these factors together and we try to make sense of where the oil price is going to be over the next few months or so, your guess is as good as mine. And I use research houses and I look at different research reports to kind of find a middle ground as to where we expect the price of oil to be. It is potentially likely to spike in the short term, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But ultimately, if this conflict is settled over the next couple of months or so, and I still expect it to be, and I'll come back to that as well, we should see the oil price settle down, but at a higher level than it was prior to the beginnings of the war in February. So higher for longer is the genius advice that I'm giving this particular industry. We're not going to go back to $65 or $65 or $70 a barrel for some time, given the bottlenecks and given the potential disruption to infrastructure that has already been caused during this particular war. So the price at the tank is going to cost more, and it will cost an arm and a leg, to use that particular idiom going forward. Now, for you in this industry, you've seen a tremendous increase in jet fuel prices. Those are the latest figures from IATA, by the way, and a few of these slides are borrowed, thank you, from the IATA website. You are more aware than anyone else about that rise in jet fuel prices, still up about 60% year on year, more or less, for jet fuel priced here on the African continent. And you all work with that absolutely every day. So, when you look at all of those factors, man, it's enough to make you feel that little bit queasy, for that matter, and to reach for that bag on your airline seat. From a global perspective, though, can we say that all of these major factors that are with us today are having a really dramatic effect on the global economy? Well, not really. When we look at the projections for the global economy this year and into next year, yes, there is going to be a drop in global GDP overall, but it's not that dramatic. I mean, I've made a big drama about these key issues. The forecasts for GDP in the next year or two is a moderate drop from where we have been at the beginnings of the year. Global GDP likely to be down to 3.4%, so it's not a train smash when it comes to the impact on the world. For the regions of the world that are more affected, the United States, the economy looks as though it will manage to overcome much of the energy shocks from a GDP perspective. In Europe, we are going to continue to see soft GDP growth, very soft GDP growth actually. But for Southeast Asia, where we will see a knock on GDP growth, and for our continent in particular, we are likely to see reasonably consistent GDP growth over the next year or two, despite some hiccups that I'll come to in a moment. So the drama of geopolitics is not yet showing up in the negativity of the economic forecasts going forward, and that's the relatively good news that I can present to you today. But of course, I can show you here on the screen, if I can just move the side here, I can show you here on the screen the projections for just about the whole world, the major economies of the whole world. And yes, the Indian economy will perform slightly off balance. The Chinese economy will be below 5% GDP, so you are seeing drops there. The French economy is going to be a little bit lower at 0.7% GDP. For us in South Africa, we are going to be impacted down from 1.4%, 1.5% projections to 1.2% or so. So yeah, we are seeing moderate downticks in a wide variety of economies, but it's not really the train smash as one would expect. Now, for those of you looking to get in on the American political system, there's the T-shirt that you can buy. And those observant members of the audience here, you will note that there's always this consideration that the American president wants to run again for office. But if the price of gas goes up to such a degree in the US, you will be buying a Trump $20 28 T-shirt for that election contest in a few years' time. But I put this up on the screen to indicate that this is a domestic American political issue, the high price of oil, and it will impact the US electorate going forward. It's a pressure point for the US president to attempt to strike some sort of deal and extricate himself from the Middle Eastern crisis. So when we look at the figures that have come out from the United States just in the course of the last day or so, we've seen US inflation tick up. It's the highest inflation rate in about 3 years, and that has a negative impact, obviously, on the American consumer and on the American political psyche as well, as wage growth has not kept up with that rise in oil price. It was a significant set of figures that were released yesterday. It's not just in the US where consumers are feeling squeezed. And of course, that's a problem for this industry, especially for long-haul passengers from Europe or for the United States or even from Asia coming into our part of the world. Consumers are feeling squeezed. And let me repeat that. Consumers are feeling squeezed. They've got to find money to pay for transport and gasoline. Do they have the same level of disposable income to come to Africa, to come to the Delta, to come to Cape Town for that matter, and spend freely? And I think there is going to be constraints because of that, particularly on the airlift industry, coming from certainly the Western countries of this world. But China also faces pressure. It's not just consumers feeling upset in the US or in Europe. The Chinese consumer confidence index has been poor. They're sitting on cash. They are concerned about the future. They too are not spending on long haul as much as was expected. And we were doing projections 5-10 years ago about this rising tide of the Chinese traveler. Well, it hasn't quite materialized, certainly in 2026 or so. And coupled to that reluctance, I would argue, to spend on long haul is the potential for rising interest rates once again from the major markets, the major banks in Europe and the United States. Those rising interest rates also tend to diminish economic growth and take cash out of the pocket. So these are distinct dangers that we face in the world today. And on the oil price, and I've spoken about the oil price looking as though it will settle at a slightly higher level by the end of the year, off highs from now, there may still be trouble ahead. The geopolitical risk, it's the biggest energy shock that we've seen in the world in the last 30, 40 years that we're experiencing now, yet the price of a barrel of oil has not reached critical crisis points yet. And I stress the point yet, because with supplies being diminished, and that supply, that excess supply that's been used ultimately by the US, by China in particular, even by India, that supply will begin to run dry in the next 2 to 3 months or so. And I think we're in a critical 3-month phase in which the straits have to be reopened to avoid what could be a rising price, certainly in the short term. So watch out for this particular issue, because diesel stockpiles in particular are being threatened as a result of stockpiles being used to offset the lack of supply coming out of the strait. And that to me is a critical issue to watch, and I can't be that optimistic because I have to flag this to you as an industry. Watch that in the short term. For us, though, on the African continent, of course, this brings economic challenges to us. And again, when you look at the projections for Africa, yes, although I've mentioned we are not going to take a substantive knock in growth as a continent over the course of this year, we're going to see softer growth in general. It's as simple as that. And the war, of course, has an effect. It has an effect on stalling investment. It has an effect on food insecurity and inflation, on higher borrowing costs, which our more fragile economies really can't afford. And again, when we look at the projections for inflation for many of the key African markets over the course of this year or so, and you can't see it all in the particular hall because the figures are too small, but for most of the major economies, those inflation rates look as though they are going to rise over the course of this year for obvious reasons going forward. And my concern always when it comes to Africa is about people. This is a continent about people, and the deputy president has quite right in saying that people are our strength as a continent. But people need to eat. People need to feel as though they are getting value for the society in which they live. They need that security. With rising food prices comes a degree, of course, of food insecurity and general depression. This is a political issue as much as it is a social issue, because we on this continent spend much more on average for our food basket than, of course, those in developed countries do. So I do highlight this as a particular risk. Now, if that all sounds rather sort of unpleasant, hold on a sec, because I do have some better news for you going forward. Again, we've looked at the charts. Again, we've crunched the numbers. And again, the medium to longer term projections for Africa's GDP growth continues to put us at the same level of growth as Southeast Asia, as the 2 top growth regions of the world over the next year or two. Of course, there are different scenarios depending on the Gulf conflict, but in the medium to longer term, the growth path has not changed. And that's my message to you today. The growth path for Africa has not changed fundamentally. We're one of the fastest growing regions in the world and will continue to be. You can take the African continent and you look to see which of the regions are growing better than others in general, and you can see on the map, and if any of you can't sleep tonight, I will send you a PDF version of these charts, so it'll lull you to sleep when you are considering your various deals that you're going to do later on. But if we look at the various regions of Africa going forward, I mean, there's a little dip. It looks as though the projections for 2027, this is from the African Development Bank, they look back up to relatively good projections into the future. So you can't make too much about this dip that we're seeing. It's a dip, and I believe a temporary dip. And I can go through all of the GDP projections for most of the African countries. There are some disappointments, absolutely, including my own country, where we're only going to grow at about 1.1% GDP this year. But generally speaking, for the Ethiopias of this world, for the Kenyas of this world, for the Cote d'Ivoires of this world, for Rwanda, looking pretty good despite the global risk that we're seeing. And again, you can go through all of the economies: Ethiopia, Cote d'Ivoire, Uganda, Zambia, Ghana still looking pretty good, by the way. Egypt has the issues as well. Morocco looking quite good in the North African context as well. Headline inflation. Yes, I've indicated there's a risk, particularly through food inflation. The medium to longer term figures for inflation, whilst they are going to rise, are still lower than some of the previous crises that we've seen. So let's not get carried away that this is an impending disaster at all. And we've seen some structural strength in Africa emerge over the course of the last few years. Public debt across this continent has plateaued, which is good to see. And that, of course, gives African economies a foundation, in a sense, to pursue those additional policies that can diversify economies, which is needed here as well. A year ago on the stage, I spoke about the issue of tariffs and the impact that tariffs would have on the African economies. And what's happened a year later? Well, the US Supreme Court has struck down some of the more damaging tariffs. And even when we look again at most African countries, we've seen the tariff obligations drop substantially as a result of that Supreme Court decision. So tariffs haven't had that damaging effect on our economies going forward. But look, again, we can look at economies, we can look to see who are going to be the winners and who are going to be the losers. In a sense, Botswana, as the Deputy President so eloquently explained, is in this period of transition. And it's in a period of transition at a very difficult global time. So it's an opportunity, in a sense, for Botswana to see those geopolitical risks, look at her own geoeconomic risk, which was the diamond industry, and shift. So it's a really good, what I call pivot opportunity for a country like Botswana. The timing, although one never wants to be forced to pivot and be reactionary, the timing couldn't be better to be positive about change, as was explained in the fireside chat session. My country is going to have a little tougher period this year. Ghana might as well, but the infrastructure spend, the rollout of technology in countries like Kenya and Ethiopia are providing them with a buffer in terms of all of these geopolitical risks that I've spoken about. And Nigeria, for that matter, may well benefit and benefit substantially from higher oil prices as well. So this conflict that we are seeing pertaining to Africa is not rewriting African economies. It's not changing the trajectory or the map of where we hope to be. It's acting as an amplifier of the existing domestic conditions. And that's the important issue. It's an amplifier of the existing domestic conditions. Weak economies will face stress. But economies that understand where the future is going to be can take heart that this is indeed an opportunity to get those policies right, as we are seeing currently in this lovely country going forward. Of course, it's a challenge, and of course, the script hasn't quite been written yet going forward. There's no change in my overall view on Africa, for that matter. There's no change on the benefits of Africa, on the demographic explosion that this country is going to see, and the demographic powerhouse that Africa is going to be in future. In previous conferences, all of us have spoken about urbanization, about growing populations, about young people, about the importance of that new youth consumer. Younger generations are going to be the biggest spenders going forward, not just on this continent, but in other more youthful societies, particularly in Southeast Asia. That hasn't changed at all, and in fact, if anything else, growing middle classes will project that spend, particularly into your businesses. And when we look at projections going forward, based upon Africa's integration into the global economy and based on demographic expansion on this continent, trade patterns are shifting. And the projections for trade going forward for the next 5 years put this continent as one of the top trading growth destinations by volume growth just in the next 5 years or so. So the news isn't all that bad at all when it comes to Africa. From the aviation sector in particular, though, also, from the travel and tourism sector, that's so critical for this country, we continue to see positive tourist arrivals coming to the continent. And these stats are from the United Nations' latest tourism report. And indeed, when compared to other parts of the world, Africa continues to grow in the first quarter of 2026. So we'll wait to see some of the negative effects of the war itself, but very favorably when compared to other big growth regions of the world. No change there as well. And the top performing African and Middle Eastern tourism destinations, again, put Ethiopia, by the way, there at number 1. And my friends in Eswatini, where I was also for the first time not that long ago, scoring very well, I might add. There should be a little bit of competition here between Botswana and Eswatini to get on that list of the top performing African tourism destinations. But for global airlines, you've seen global passenger traffic fall and you've seen profits fall, as IATA announced just over the last few weeks or so. And for some countries in particular, where their share of international inbound passenger traffic is reliant upon Gulf connectivity, those countries are reporting a drop-off in inbound tourism or inbound PAX. And I've recently been to the Seychelles, on business I might add, and they were reporting, of course, a drop in numbers coming into that particular country. And we too have seen in South Africa that tourism numbers have dropped just in the last 3 to 4 weeks or so. But for many travelers, they're not going via the Gulf hubs because of insecurity issues, but they're rerouting. And they're taking African carriers into Africa. The insatiable desire to travel, to explore, and to conduct business is shifting routings more than keeping us from getting on that particular plane. And in particular, an airline like Ethiopian certainly has derived benefit as a result of the Gulf hubs not being immediately available. And how do I say this? Yes, there's anecdotal evidence, but there's also researched evidence to show in particular. And these are figures that come out of the UK London-based airports. In March, passenger traffic to Ethiopia increased by nearly 40% from direct from the London's airports. Manchester to Addis Ababa, that route scored a 73% increase just in March alone as travelers went on direct services into this continent. So again, without saying anything bad about the Gulf hubs, having our own hubs and developing them here on this continent provides a bulwark against over-reliance upon other regions of the world should there be security concerns. And that, to me, is an important factor, how we gain a degree of autonomy for our continent as well. Yes, global RPK is down, as you've seen in terms of the IATA scores, but when we look at RPA growth by airline region of registration, Africa continues in the latest figures to be up there with the best, for that matter. Again, dropping from March because of those direct services into the continent, but nevertheless, RPK growth looking pretty good in the last reporting period. And again, in terms of the projections for this year and into the next few years or so, Africa has not changed its leading position in terms of those particular expectations. But look, let's be honest about it as well. Those are the figures and those are the stats. it also looks as though African travelers are also cost conscious. Obviously they are, because the biggest anecdotal complaint I have when I tell people that I'm speaking at an aviation conference in Africa, they say to me, we'd love to travel more in Africa, but we can't afford to. It's as simple as that. And when you've got disposable income being stretched by food price rises and by petrol bills, African travelers who are even more susceptible to constraints on what they can take out of their pocket are likely to look at shorter haul or cheaper destinations to discover. I think this is going to be a feature, of course, of European travelers as well, and that European holiday season now looks as though it's going to be busier than ever, as Europeans themselves don't want to spend on long-haul flights. So there is an issue here of long-haul destinations feeling temporary pain, but that's why creating the domestic market, the regional market, and the continental market is the security foundation that African aviation needs, and that is why this conference takes place on an annual basis to foster that. Even when we look at forward bookings into Africa, they do look that little bit softer going forward as a result of these issues. And I hasten to add, if we haven't got enough issues, we also have the health-related issues of Ebola that hopefully will be alleviated in the next few months, but in the short term can create a resistance from some foreign passengers in coming more broadly to the continent going forward. Well, it's an interesting position. Africa is shifting its paradigm as to how it operates. Historically, this has been a continent designed for extracting her commodities to other parts of the world. The shift now that we are seeing is that Africa is not extracting her commodities, she is now looking at internal integration, internal trade. It's not an external migration, it's a migration of business and people and traffic internally on this continent. And the real opportunity for us, yes, I want those foreign visitors to come and see your Delta, which is magnificent, or so I am told by the Deputy President here this morning. But what I think is particularly relevant is that the regional opportunity for city pairs on this continent remains untapped. And that's going to be the core driver of economic growth and opportunity for this particular audience and your airlines in particular. African aviation is there to bridge the gap between profitability and the need to grow business and grow the regional and continental economy as well. All of you are aware of the tight operating margins that apply on this particular continent. But all of you are aware of that huge demographic potential that is emerging across the continent if the liberalization of African skies takes place, and if the regulatory and cost environment and tax environment can be mitigated as far as possible, because that's a disincentive for young Africans in particular to get on that plane and to explore their own continent. So I've spoken to you about the external vulnerability that all of us face in a very challenging global environment. What's critical for us is that the continent transforms. It transforms its trade regime. It opens up borders absolutely. And I couldn't agree more with the notion that we should be seen as one. We should be seen as one. Some of my fellow South Africans don't like that particular idea, I might say, sitting here on the stage today. And thirdly, we need to build a continent that's a shock absorber continent, that takes away some of these externalities that impact us and protect ourselves in the process. We need a degree of what I call strategic autonomy for Africa going forward, and this industry can provide it through a better regulatory framework, through the Continental Free Trade Agreement, and of course through the creation of more continental hubs servicing our continent and those coming in from outside. So look, there's a lot of mist, in a sense, in the world today. When that mist clears, I'm still bullish about this continent going forward. It's a beautiful, magnificent continent with beautiful and magnificent people who I meet on a daily basis in my job. Put up all the fancy graphs you want in the world. It's about people and their commitment and their interest to pursue the continent and its growth. But look, it is a difficult time for all of us. Let's be honest about it. And for all of us in this industry, yeah, you've had a few bad days, I'm pretty sure, over the course of the last few months or so, worrying about your bottom line, worrying about your capacity and your route development, particularly because of high input costs. But listen, if you think you're having a bad day, just for a moment, take a look at these guys at Frankfurt Airport only a few weeks ago. Those guys at Frankfurt Airport saw that plane drop. Injured a few people, I must tell you, so it's no laughing matter. But if you're a ground handling guy here in this room, that's one of your nightmares, by the way, in terms of having a bad day. So others have a bad day, we all have bad days. This is indeed a continent of hope. And when you look at the figures and the data, no material change in the medium to longer term. I do believe that the path and trajectory is positive for aviation investment on this continent. And I must say, when you look at the figures and you look at the data and you speak on the ground to those who live in the north and south and east and west of this continent, there is a commitment for growth that in very many cases you don't see with the same enthusiasm in other parts of the world. And I travel widely, and that sense of continental pride, continental patriotism, forget all the rest of it. That's going to add many points to the GDP and the opportunities for this continent going forward. Thank you very much for listening to me this morning.
Thank you, Daniel. What an amazing presentation. So that's 2 speakers that have got me in trouble now. Thank you. Yeah, that GIF at the end was on just a little bit too long, but it's all good. It's all good. So thank you, Daniel. So we're going to take you into the boardroom now, but I believe that our honored guest does have to depart. So if you can rise, please, for the Vice President of the Republic of Botswana, Honorable Ndaba Gaolathe. Thank you so much. Okay, please take your seats. So as we reset the stage, I want to just take this opportunity to tell you something that we do during the year, that we only do one of these events a year, and that is the AviaDev Insight Africa podcast. So it's been going now over 8 years. I've got nearly 400 episodes to date. It's available everywhere. I'm looking around, seeing so many people who've been on it, and also the AviaDev YouTube channel. So pretty much once a week, there'll be a new episode on there, an interview with some airline exec or something that is taking place, some news in the aviation industry here in Africa. So yeah, you can find that on Spotify, on Apple, Google, obviously, as I say, YouTube channel. So that is what we do through the year, and obviously attend and support our industry partner events as well. But now we're going to get into our first panel. Now, this is the power panel that we have starting off the conference each year. And guiding this, which is our industry airline leaders panel, is one of the most trusted sources in African aviation, somebody who's really built a reputation and puts her heart and soul into this session every single year. And I always go, please, same as Daniel, please come back. Please let me do this again, because the work and the understanding that they have and the feedback that we get from you is just absolutely amazing. So Hilke Burns is from our long-term media partner, CH Aviation. And like us, they're one of the last independent operators in the space. AviaDev's a small little company of a couple of people, and we're competing with the sharks, the PLCs that are there, and they've really, they've got a return for their shareholders. But, CH has become, and Hilke specifically, attends the events. We can trust her content. And in this world that is dominated by AI-generated content, where you're never quite sure whether it was actually written by the person you're reading it from, Whenever I see her name, I know she's done the homework, she's done the work. It's absolutely fantastic. So it is an absolute honor to have you with us again, Hilke. The stage is yours. Please, big round of applause. Welcome her on the stage.
Thanks, Don. Thank you, John, as always. As a representative for CH Aviation, I'm always thrilled to be here and to be partnered with AviaDev. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Route development sounds simple. Launch flights, grow networks, connect markets. In reality, it's one of the toughest balancing acts in aviation, where demand, politics, infrastructure, fleet constraints, airport economics, and profitability all collide. So here we have a promise for you this morning. We're going to skip the usual talking points and avoid another hour of theory and SATM rhetoric. Do I hear a few yays? Instead, we're going to keep this practical, honest, and commercially grounded. And I've got an outstanding panel to unpack that. And I'm going to call you up as you take your seat, not the first chair, but the second one to the left. So the first one, if somebody could just put up the panel, please, so I can see how to put it up on stage. Thank you. So De Villiers Engelbrecht, Chief Executive of Airline. Please come up, De Villiers. Next up is Kirsten King, who is the Group Chief Executive of the FastJet Group. Then we have our host, Dr. Bao Mosini from Air Botswana, General Manager. Then we have Julius Tairu, Chief Commercial Officer of Kenya Airways. And last but not least, Jolson Vasconcelos, Director, Network Scheduling, Fleet Planning and Alliance of TARC Angolan Airlines. Thank you, everyone. Please take a seat. In the meantime, we've got a little question for you. Please take out your Slidos and vote. What is the single biggest factor shaping successful airline route development today? Is it A, sustainable passenger demand and market fundamentals, B, airport incentives, partnerships and government support, or C, fleet availability and operational constraints? So go ahead and vote on the Slido app. And we can come back to that at the end of the discussion. Morning, everyone. Welcome. So we just heard a very insightful presentation by our friend Daniel, and he sounded quite positive. Because my first question to you is, we're in a geopolitical crisis, and the fuel price has gone through the roof, and our margins are depressed. Is this the right time to talk about route development? And Dev, I'm going to see you sitting next to me, and I know you're going to be positive, so give us a positive spin.
Thanks, Hilke. Thanks for having me. Obviously, the last 12 months, the last 12 weeks have been very difficult for all of our colleagues around, on the stage and in the crowd. But we've seen some, we initially, when it started, we had a plan and we implemented the plan, and then we saw some interesting, spots in the market, which we decided let's rather be positive and then lean into the opportunities that it presents. So 12 weeks later, we've, I believe we announced new routes yesterday. So, we looked for those opportunities. We looked where there were less capacity, in the market. And we decided to lean into those. And what we also saw as well is interesting leasing opportunities. So we took the opposite view. So while we deal with what's in front of us, and I'm very happy to say that our revenue management team has done a great job. We're now actually pursuing opportunities. So yes, there's a setback, but for airlines, which are so prone to setbacks, every time you face a setback, and if you're going to sulk, you're not going to go anywhere. So we're trying to make the best of it.
Kirsten, a bit more cautious, I think.
Yes, it's definitely a setback, but so what we'll do, we had some plans to launch 2 new routes actually in March this year. So we'll pause those for now just because of the increased risk of operational losses during the fuel crisis. But it's just a pause of those new routes, and we just need to see our way through this crisis. That's aviation. It goes in ups and downs and peaks and troughs. So we will recommence those plans later on in the year.
That's kind of your opinion as well, Bao, isn't it?
Yeah, well, certainly this is a time for what one can look at as a little pause. But as the VP said earlier, talking about Botswana as a country that when we used to be awash with diamonds money, execution didn't matter as much as it does now. And I think the same goes for any business, including the airline industry. When you are in this period, the good thing about it, it helps you really know who you are. Because when you are in a crisis, you have to redefine yourself. And not only yourself, you see how others redefine themselves. And from that, you can see opportunities that, even though you may not be able to jump at them immediately, it helps to start thinking and talking connectivity for when things get better.
And Julius, Kenya Airways, it's about protecting profitability, not growth for growth's sake.
All right. Hilka, ours is a bit unique because our current challenge is especially, capacity scarcity. I think Daniel spoke to a shift in how people are traveling. So we see, especially in Nairobi, a hub strengthening, especially when we look at flows into Europe and into the US. So what we're doing is, in regard to route development, is rearranging our network and especially increasing capacity to Europe. We're going to deploy 777, 5 weekly on our London route. We're also going to increase frequencies to Gatwick from 3 to 5. So we are ramping up, CDG non-stop daily, Amsterdam non-stop daily, and JFK non-stop daily to take advantage. Because with every crisis, there's a silver lining, and that's the advantage we're taking.
Yeah. And Jolson Tag is also taking advantage of the opportunity.
Yes, Ilka, very good question. We do, but the first thing is what Airlink said. It's more important to have a strategic plan. You need to know yourself. Either you are low cost, either you are a hybrid model, or a full service. So for TAG, we have a strategic plan, 5-year strategic plan, that puts us and guides us where we want to be, who we are. And to support that strategic plan, we have actually a transformation project that is ongoing today in order to accelerate this plan. So with opportunities, with the fleet that we have a brand new fleet, especially on the long haul, the Dreamliners. We have been very cost effective on how we manage. In São Paulo route, we have been very consistent in deploying this product. It's working superbly. And also we have a new route for China, which we decided to anticipate, taking also this opportunity, and we'll have also the Dreamliner. So I would agree with, it's the right time to look at.
So let's get practical. When somebody comes to you with a proposal for a new route, what makes you say yes? What are the hard drivers behind your decisions? Kirsten.
I want to see the data. I want to see how big the passenger market size is. I want to know who's competing on that route, what gauge of aircraft they're flying, and then whether that passenger market size actually talks to what fleet gauge we already operate. Because I want to extract as much as I can out of our existing fleet for any new routes before kind of looking at upgauging, because already you're taking risk on a new route with investment in perhaps not even startup costs, but the operational losses that you're likely to incur on any new route.
Yeah. Dave, would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with all of the above. Kirsten said. I mean, those are all of the factors that we look at as well. It's also, you need to be patient. This is all long-term projects, that you look at when you start a new route. It's also about starting, and it's about developing that route over time, which is an iterative process. I want to add 2 more perspectives that from Airlink's perspective, that I find very interesting. Is that we started looking at the way people move. We all know that west travels east to travel south in Africa. So what become quite interesting to me specifically is the network effect. That when you pin another route, in your network, what happens to the rest of the network? And we saw that with Joburg Zanzibar. So when we started advertising or selling Joburg Zanzibar, Cape Town started pinging. And it's all of those signals, that happens in the greater network. And then the last factor that's quite interesting for me as well is the net margin or the net margin effect on the greater network in a data point. So if you look at our network, there's a big differentiation between the margin network or the network margin per destination. So that becomes very interesting as well.
And you also look at your distribution strategy, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. If I look at some of our routes, some of our routes, more than 50% of those routes feed online and interline, online on Airlink and then interline with some of our partners. So, and that's all part of our distribution strategy.
Right.
Yeah.
And Air Botswana, I mean, what do you need to start a new route?
Well, I would agree with my colleagues on this side. But also to say, as we would all agree, the whole idea of the existence of any enterprise is to maximize profit and enhance shareholder value. So in the end, the route has got to make money. But for us, we also sit in a little unique space as a state-owned airline. You have to look at your mandate, which part of our mandate is to connect the country. And sometimes it's not at the level of profit that some of my colleagues may be able to take, but that's a driving factor in everything that we look at when we look at new or existing routes.
Yeah, and Kenya and Tag, are you in the same position, Kenya?
Absolutely. I'm with my colleagues. It starts with profitable demand. So you look at the market now, you look at the market into the future. You also look for us because we are a hub and spoke carrier. So we look at the contribution to the network. Is it strengthening our hub? Is it strategic? I think also distribution for us is key because you can have your plans, but if you're not able to actualize and capture that demand, then your route will not be profitable. The last thing we look at, and especially this is critical in African continent, is operational resilience because there are various challenges. Let's say things like, are we able to get our money out? Are we able to operate at that time channel because some airports close at night? We also have to look at operational resilience, and all these factors then go into route development.
And Jolson Tag is always looking at the fit with it building its hub in Luanda, right?
That is correct. We have a brand new airport infrastructure that will enable and help us to build our hub. We're talking about a 15 million annual pax capacity airport. But I will also agree with what my colleague said. So to say yes, number one, you need to run the numbers, you need to run the data. If numbers justify, demand justify, especially the point-to-point, and of course 6 freedom traffics, what is the transit will contribute to the route. You're halfway to the yes. And then of course you need to evaluate your operational resources, crew, aircraft, which aircrafts are the right ones to allocate so we can at least cover cash costs, and if fixed, perfect. Otherwise, you're just back to the drawing board.
Yeah. I want to pick up on the fleet there. So fleet development and route development, which one comes first? Yeah. Does your route strategy drive the fleet, or does the fleet plan dictate the route? So Dev, I'm going to start with you again.
Yeah, that's chicken and egg one. Yeah, so if you look at Airlink's fleet, I heard a commentator say that Airlink has got the Noah's Ark of Embraer. We operate every single type of Embraer except for the turboprop.
Two of each.
Yes, each, and it does create operational difficulty, but it does give Airlink that flexibility and the agility to go and develop markets. So if you think about it, start with a small ERJ 135 or 140, 3 frequencies a week. Build that up until you get to 7 frequencies a week, and then you start upgauging that to the 170, 175, 190s. So in Airlink's world, the fleet plays a very, very big part in our growth. And if you look at the next phase of Airlink's growth, which is going to be E2-led, the E2s takes us into markets, where the E1s can't. But the two of them still work together, in the greater network development of Airlink, as part of that growth profile.
Yeah. Kirsten, I mean, you've got the 145s. Where does that take you in terms of route development?
So in the short term, I suppose the existing fleet, we're sort of limited by the existing fleet. So our longer term, we would look at how fleet actually impacts route development. So at the moment, as I said, we would be looking how we can extract in the short term as much as we can out of the existing fleet. But you're also limited by range in terms of what you can achieve with that aircraft and the markets that you can tap into with that aircraft. So, or with that equipment type. So, yes, so longer term, it does necessitate looking at fleet upgrades as well.
Yeah.
But that would be more a 6 to 10 year plan.
Yeah. Obviously. And then in Botswana, you've got some aircraft on the ground. You need to get some back from Namibia. You have ATR that are operating. How is your fleet dictating your route strategy?
I do agree with my colleagues, but also look at it from the standpoint that if a route exists, if you want to start a route and you think you will be successful in it, you get into it. But if you buy new airplanes or airplane types specifically for that, you might end up in a little bit of a situation that we are in now, where we are still a relatively small airline, but too much variety from a fleet standpoint. So route development, yes, but you've got to look at your fleet, because you end up with a lot of crew expenses, a lot of maintenance expenses, because there's no commonality. For an airline our size, we should not be having these different types of aircraft that we have.
What is the thinking at Air Botswana? What type of fleet do you want to operate?
Well, we're in a moment of redefinition, so we haven't really defined which way we will go. But certainly, we have more different types than we need at this moment.
Okay. And Julius, I mean, Kenya Airways had the problem of its wide bodies grounded for quite a long time, 787s. I mean, that must have impacted a lot of your plans for expansion.
That's absolutely. And in fact, if you look at the relationship between, your route strategy versus fleet, you have to apply a hybrid strategy, because you have to look at your current existing fleet. For example, for us, we have challenges with some of the grounded aircraft, which has meant that we've had to delay some plans, especially expanding into the US, also additional flights into Europe, and also more importantly, especially deploying wide-body capacity in Africa. We see there quite a number of mature routes, especially in South Africa being one of the mature market, where to help with connectivity, especially in Africa, you need to deploy many more seats. So you have to take a hybrid approach, but in a perfect world, and I'm thinking of airlines like Riyadh Air that is setting up now. In a perfect world, of course, you'll come with your route strategy. And then fleet fits into your route strategy. But for now, we have to work with what we have. We see a lot of scarcity also with wide-body capacity, because apart from the grounded fleet, we are also bringing back our 777. It's one unit, and really we had to think in a creative, smart way. Where do we profitably deploy that one unit as we plan to grow our wide-body capacity in future?
Yeah. And Jolson, so TAG is in the perfect position at the moment. You're getting your 220s in. You've got your 787s all in. You're ready to go.
We're ready to go. But before getting into TAG, answering directly to your question, I would agree with my colleague, Kenya Airways. Route should be guiding fleet on a general terms. But we have seen situations on the opposite side, depending also on the mandates as the state-owned airline would have. We at TAG, for example, we faced in the past our 777s, which we had a very wide first business cabin. But it's all a question of being creative. So you have always charter options, leasings. It's just a matter of being quick, fast, responsive on how we can take profit of our assets. And yeah, basically you'll get there. So for TAG, yes, we have a brand new fleet still coming, 15 order of A220s, 6 already there. End of this year, 3 more to come, last quarter. A220s will be basically the backbone of our regional expansion, which our goal is very clear to link the 2 sub-regions, Southern Africa, West, Central Africa. Southern Africa, we're very much covered, especially to Johannesburg, Cape Town. The goal is to increase more on Windhoek, Maputo, Portuguese-speaking countries that we have very strong Sixth Freedom traffic to Portugal. And we also serve the 2 Congos, very important markets for TAG. And of course, we want to expand to the Western Africa sub-region. This strategy started with Lagos. Now we're moving more to Abidjan, Accra, and this will be our backbone of the A220s. On the long haul, we are now moving more to a cost-effective strategy by deploying more Dreamliners. So it's a total of 4 orders, and the 777s will be in the more mature markets that we have currently in our network.
Great. So partnerships, I mean, in the environment that we've got at the moment, is this the time for increased partnerships, code-shares, interlines, joint ventures, or even competitors working together? Julius, I know you feel quite strongly about this.
Absolutely. It's the right time. Because in an uncertain environment, you also want to be able to share the risks. I just came from IATA AGM, and IATA AGM is really all about partnerships. But more important is also we need to be very deliberate, especially working with our African partners, because I think we very quickly signed these big partnerships with everyone outside Africa, because normally value is almost immediate and predictable. And sometimes we don't want to do the hard work of working with our neighbors, where benefit might not be immediate. You need to look at it from big picture. I don't want to get into trouble here, but like when I was traveling back, I had to use, I think I have to be honest, I had to use South African Airways and then use Air Botswana to get here. And I could not through-check my bag in Sao Paulo. So I actually had to arrive in Cape Town with a 2-hour connection, get out, have my passport stamped, go get my bag, check back in to have my passport stamped again, to check in the bag again. And these are 2 airlines that are neighbors, and we also have the same thing, so I'm not pointing fingers here, that we should be a lot more deliberate to improve travel and connectivity within Africa by working together. Yes, we still also need to work with those airlines that help us bring traffic in and out of Africa, but to drive connectivity, we really need to, have those, rebooking agreements, have interline, have code shares, and also be more strategic. There's something we are still trying to work with one of our neighboring airline. I think South African Airways, it has been in public domain, where we're looking for a really strategic partnership. It's not easy, there's politics in it, but I think really when value is clear, then we really need to make sure that we actually do the hard work and get it done.
Yeah,
and we avoid PR, because a lot of times, we sign all these agreements, but they're PR, they're not backed by data, strong business cases, and holding ourselves accountable to deliver those results.
Right. Kirsten, when we're talking about partnerships, Fastjet is looking at the franchise model. And I know Airlink has got the franchise with Fly Namibia as well, but you are really making it your model for the future. Tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, so we're quite excited about that. I think it's one way, especially with our smaller fleet with limited range, it's one way to develop and grow in Africa. So we want to identify potential smaller operators in Africa and partner up with them. It's not a silver bullet, because you've got to find the right partners as well to partner with. But that is, we see one way of then effectively helping that operator to, and it's mutually benefit to the franchisee and the franchisor, being FastJet, to effectively reduce their unit costs in terms of distribution costs, providing revenue, certain skills, revenue management skills, revenue accounting skills, pricing, and then, yeah, so effectively to grow those sort of markets. And then longer term, potentially look at large gauge aircraft to then connect, for example, Zimbabwe with the market of the franchisee.
Okay.
So it's a long play.
Yeah.
It's not anything that we can switch on overnight. But yeah, that's what we're looking at.
I think the smaller airlines in the room have heard you, I hope. Dev, so you've had the experience now with Fly Namibia, a franchise partnership. You also have the partnership with Qatar Airways. So give us that perspective.
If I can get back there.
Yeah.
So I've got partnerships and cooperation happens at different levels. So firstly, being end of continent, Airlink is completely alliance agnostic. So we feed, we feed and defeed with any carrier that would care to partner with Airlink. And I think it's very important for the market in which we operate. So that's the first, the first element. Secondly, Airlink has always been very vocal about the fact that our market is far too fragmented. We all love competition, but when you operate in the environment that we operate, we've been a big proponent of consolidation, partnerships, public-private partnerships, between airlines in the region, to make sure that we get those connections in place, to make sure that we have a sustainable aviation environment. I think the record of airline failures in South Africa is well documented. It's been very stable for the last 5 years. Thank goodness for that. But so there's another level of cooperation that needs to happen, and specifically in the Southern African region, in our opinion. Then moving to the franchise, we do have a franchise template. We implemented it with Fly Namibia about 3 years ago, if I remember correctly. And for all intents and purposes, it works very well. Once again, as Kirsten said, we bought our distribution to Fly Namibia. They couldn't afford it at the time, to be very frank, and they basically distribute their inventory within our greater distribution system, and having access potentially to all of our partners, which makes sense. Fly Namibia still has the option to use their own code, so they're not forced into the Airlink code. So they've got that flexibility. So then moving to Qatar Airways, the partner or the relationship is now nearly 2 years old. It's been fantastic for Airlink. Firstly, the brand endorsement that we get from that, Qatar Airways being the best airline in the world, putting their brand behind Airlink means a hell of a lot. But then also secondly, we've got 2 board members, and the commercial teams, interact on a weekly basis, and there's this osmosis happening. They've got a far greater view of what happens from a network perspective than we do south of continent. So for all intents and purposes, we've got a lot to learn. They've got far more resources than we have, but the relationship is great, and it's been very beneficial for Airlink.
Yeah. A question I wanted to ask, and I know Jolson's got something to say about it. Often as African airlines, we are more comfortable partnering with global carriers than with African carriers. And I know Kenya Airways has tried to partner with SAA. Jolson, you have an opinion on this, and then I'll come to Julius.
Yeah, thanks, Ilka. But before getting into that, so just to give you some context, at TAG, we take partnerships very seriously in the sense that it's a very strong component from our strategy. So TAG has been very open, and I can say this freely because I actually have been one of the faces in front of partnering with commercial partnerships with lots of African carriers. We take it on a very, very serious and prudent, responsible manner, because we like to feed the feed, and with the strategy that we want to develop our hub, we're quite open in code sharing, interlining SPA especially. At this level, joint ventures are more complex. That's maybe for the future over the last years. So Your question is pertinent, Ilka. I think today in Africa we have a big problem, which is trust issues, especially when it comes to revenue settlement. We have many African carriers that still face issues with ICH. I think that's one of the problems we have, maybe why certain carriers have preferences to partnership with other geographical areas. And then a lot of operational constraints, changes of board, teams. So those are topics that we need to address. We need to be more close in Africa. We need to have a wider trust atmosphere in order to build strong partnerships. I can give you an example that we had in the past with an African partner, which this carrier was suspended ICH. So the natural and the normal procedure of any carrier will be immediately to close inventory access. At the time, internally, we decided not to do so. We said, no, let's trust. You know, we were trying to build a relation here. Let's find a solution to a revenue settlement. And luckily, this carrier got out. They cleared ICH, and we progressed as today. So I think it's a matter of trust. It's a matter of relationship. But we also understand that revenue settlements can be an issue when carriers are not ICH, and that can hurt.
Let's get back to the topic of the African carriers collaborating. So, Julius, you know, as I said, Kenya Airways had this dream of a Pan-African alliance. It is still a dream, I believe, when we heard what George told the Africa Stakeholders Convention, calling for an alliance of African airlines. Is it realistic?
Okay, let me start by saying we currently work with a number of African airlines, and we continue to look for value, and we continue to expand the partnerships. Strategically, we felt because many airlines in Africa are subscale, and in our business, when you're subscale, you know, it's very difficult to, you know, with all the challenges we have, especially in our continent, to grow. And that's where the idea of consolidation, and consolidation can be in many different angles, was coming from. And this is not new. I mean, if you look at starting from the US, or even in Europe, we actually still continue to see consolidation. Air Portugal now is up for sale. And because all these airlines realize at that scale, you really will not be able to conquer the challenges that are ahead. But I think giving, you know, maybe talking a bit to the experience we had with our Pan-African partnership attempt with South African Airways. The vision was bought by the two airlines, by the government, but a lot of the difficulties were around, we've got our own internal issues. So I think it is important also as African carriers, we resolve some internal issues with a bit of sense of urgency, because then you will have then focus on this big picture. So, but if you've got challenges of still, you know, you need to clean up your balance sheet, you've got grounded fleet that needs to be up, you need to serve certain markets for there to be value. Again, I'm coming from Brazil. If you look at Southern Africa countries, you know, they've got good path into whether you talk of Latin America or whether you talk of Australia. So if airlines down south, you know, are consolidating, you know, not just intra-Africa, you know, network, but also feeding into those key markets, then it becomes a viable option. Like, why should I go to Europe to go to Brazil? I mean, it's much easier to come down south and then go to Brazil. But the airlines we partner with also need to become strong on their own. So the biggest, I think, takeaway was we need to fast track our own internal healings, sort out issues, you know, like for Kenya Airways is get our grounded fleet up and running, up in the air, so that we can strengthen our network, even as we look for airline partners to work with. Yeah.
I'm just cognizant of the time, and I want to move on to the next question. So partnerships, airports, are you really getting what you need from them? How are they incentivizing you to fly there? Bao, airports. Your partners. And there are quite a few in the room. What do you need from them?
As we know, airports are mostly owned by the government. So when you talk airports, you're also talking the Ministry of Transport. And when you look in our part of the world, part of what would really help, at least for a country like ours, where the population is low, the success of connectivity will rely quite a bit on tech flights, which means fifth freedom. And that's where the the airports come in. And that's where the Ministry of Transports come in. And that tends to be a little bit of a challenge. And until we address that and take care of that, we will continue to have the difficulties that we have. I can speak sitting here in front of all our colleagues here, that none of these airlines sitting here can ever say they have attempted or asked or requested fifth freedom rights in Botswana and be refused. And that's what connectivity has to be based on. And if we open up and we're able to do that, that's where we need the facilitation from the airports and their ministries.
Yeah. And Dev, we've promised not to talk about SATM, but we heard the vice president sitting here saying, we want to open borders. But what is the reality actually when it comes to regulatory constraints, as an African airline?
Me?
Yes, you.
Okay. So we find it very difficult. So Airlink's got a lot of experience in this, and with the greatest respect to my colleagues, for as long as states are going to own airlines, it's not going to free up, because there's national interest, there's self-interest, and it's going to make it very, very difficult for markets to open up properly in Africa. So I don't have the solution for that. I can offer it, but I'm not going to do it here.
But what is the one single policy decision that you want people to change? Those people that's sitting here in the room that could make those policy decisions.
Okay, you've asked me.
That would make route development better.
I think it's good. It would be good for as a private operator for states to step aside, regulate well, tax efficiently, and let the private sector get on with it. That's if I had one wish, that's what I would do. So I just want to give you another example for what we see in the African markets. For an African operator to come to South Africa, you pay a FOP fee of about $25. For Airlink, we're busy with an application right now. It's $26,000 per year. In Central Africa, you're going to pay $18,000 every 6 months.
Jeez.
And that's the kind of regulatory asymmetry that you face. And for me, the only way, that's going to be cleared over time, it's going to be a long-term project, is for markets to deregulate, like what happened in South Africa. And over time, just, let governments, do what government's supposed to do, and let the private sector get on with it.
Thanks. Does anyone, I don't want to pick on anyone particular, but does anyone on the panel have another opinion on this point? Yeah?
I'd like to add one small note on the airports. And this is for us, the airlines here in this room. I think we have spoke a lot about incentives and the cost structures, and we all are unanimous that taxes, fees, surcharges are what they are and how this affects our cost structure when it comes to route development. However, I think that we still need a more closer approach when it comes to sitting with airports, showing case what we exactly want to plan and how this affects our cost structure. So sometimes it feels, and I'm sorry if I'm playing the devil's advocate here for the airlines, but airports will defend me. I think we need to be more closer and show, especially when we have those 6 freedom traffics that we want to develop inside our route network. Let's say if I want to connect 2 sub-regions from our hub, it's important that we showcase and we can convince also airports and governments how can we decrease and the volumetric benefits that they will have if we showcase our strategy or our route development plans. So I think we as airlines have also homework to do, and have a more closer approach to airports and government entities
Okay.
on this matter.
With the eye on the clock, let's talk about something positive. Name one or two routes or markets you're genuinely excited about right now. So, Dev, I know what you're going to say. The big announcement was made today, but please, this is your floor. Make it again.
No, I'm not going to make, the announcement again, but if we see, what's happening in our network, South Africa still excites us.
Okay.
We believe there's opportunity for Airlink specific. And if we go down to the minutiae, for us, Cape Town is going to be the next, big development. Johannesburg is choked, there is no capacity. So Cape Town will be our focus. And if I look at, our pipeline of route development, we've probably got 3 years ahead of us, with the E2s coming in. That's going to keep us very busy. The questions we're asking is what happens after 3 years. That's what keeps me up, up at night. But in specific markets, West Africa excites me in a cold sweat, at night kind of way. We're going to venture into West Africa soon. We still believe there's opportunities in Central Africa, and then there's also East. So for the next 4 to 5 years, we've got our work cut out, and we're very positive about, the future.
So Mauritius, and then may I say Lagos?
I can't say.
Kirsten, what excites you guys?
So we're very positive about business in Zimbabwe. We see things growing nicely in Zim. So we are keen to launch our Harare, Gaborone and Harare, Maputo routes, which we had paused. So we're keen to do that. And then we also are looking from this sort of franchise perspective, also West Africa, but also a bit longer term. So excited for those opportunities.
Fantastic. And Botswana?
Not a specific answer, but to say the philosophy of the belief really is that international connectivity succeeds on the backbone of strong regional connectivity, and regional connectivity succeeds on the strength of local connectivity. So two ways to say that again, that we will, of course, going forward, be looking at some of the routes that we've had before that were stopped at some point, but also, more importantly, domestic connectivity.
Yeah.
Because that's where things will have to grow, and we will be looking at connecting Botswana even better.
Fantastic. And Julius, you let slip London.
Right. Before I go to London, 2 points. South Africa market remains very exciting for us,
okay.
Both Joburg and Cape Town. And why I'm pointing out South Africa is, again, when you think of barriers, we should, sometimes I think in Africa, and I might be naive, close our eyes and remove all these visa requirements for travelers. We've done that at least in Kenya. I think we demonstrated it works when visa requirement for Kenyans was removed in 2024 to South Africa. Traffic doubled, up to 42,000. And that was part of why, there's a lot of success, and we're deploying a lot of capacity in South Africa market that drives a lot of intra-Africa connectivity. The other, of course, exciting route for us is Gatwick. So it's our second city in London. Unfortunately, we can't have 2 flights to London Heathrow. We all know the challenges there. But why, for me, it's exciting, it's the time channel we're introducing. It departs Nairobi at night, so it starts to drive this whole Africa connectivity, because a lot of the flights are arriving in the evening and then onwards into London. So for us, those are the 2 exciting routes for us.
And that's what TARC's doing with your new route to Guangzhou, right? It's sparking your interconnectivity.
Correct, Ilka. So Guangzhou is our big news in Angola. It's moving crowds. We all know the importance, the economic ties that China has with Africa, especially with Angola, over the last 20 years. We look forward to this route. It starts in 2 weeks' time, 23rd of June. Sorry. But also within our network, I would highlight São Paulo route. Since we deployed the Dreamliner, it has been performing superbly, really good product. We have been receiving so much good comments and positiveness from passengers, corporates, I mean, you name it. And of course, then, I will also highlight South Africa. South Africa is a very strategic market for Angola, for us. We have very strong ambitions with Johannesburg and Cape Town. Gradually, we have been also putting capacity on the night flights, and this is something that we also look forward. But definitely today is Guangzhou, China, our big news and excitement.
We look forward to seeing that. So to finish off, I'd like you all to give one piece of advice to the audience, to the airports, to the government sitting in this room. Where should they focus their efforts to further route development? What does it really take to be a catalyst for growth? And I'm going to ask our host, Airline Air Botswana, to kick this off.
I think as Africa, we have talked a lot about, over the years, about what restricts us from growing. Through SATAM and such, we've talked about the restrictions that you get from other airports, so freedom rights. We've talked about the fees, that the fees are what's stifling most airlines from growing. And that continues to be where we are. But I'm proud with all of us here in Botswana today that we're fairly liberal, as I mentioned earlier. Nobody can claim here they've been refused freedom rights. And I can say the fees, aeronautical fees and airport fees are generally lower than anybody in our region. It's not a race to the bottom, but if we as countries start to move towards that and make it easier for airlines to succeed, that will improve connectivity.
Okay, Kenya Airways, what do you need?
I think for me, route development, the success has to be partnership-led. And it's not by accident that we have all the key players here. So for example, and we used to fly to Gaborone as Kenya Airways. We stopped in 2016. If we are to restart that destination, and it's something, of course, we are looking at with many other destinations in Africa, it is not just about us deploying seats into Botswana. It's about us, talking to the government here, the tourism boards, looking at the data, working with Air Botswana, to make sure we have that partnership. It's about getting cost, the cost benefits and incentives. So really, route development has to be, and you have to be deliberate, that it's not just about the airline. It really needs to be partnership-led, and it's an agenda to strengthen African economy.
Okay, and Todd, from the governments, from the airports, what do you need?
I would say one thing. Everything I would agree with my two colleagues said, but one thing I would highlight, and whoever knows any government official, please tell them that we need to open the borders. That's number one. Open the borders is very important and will be a complete game changer. Everything will naturally come. Yeah, and I think then, of course, the rest is very internal. It depends on us airlines, how we conduct our route development, our strategies. But I think we need the borders open. This is condition number one.
Okay, and then I want the perspective from the private carriers here. So, Kirsten, what do you need?
I suppose just giving us a level playing field with the national carriers, that would probably help best. Let private business compete and do what it needs to do in Africa.
Here. Dev?
I've said my say. This is the first year that I attend conferences for my sins. But the theme has been, pretty much similar across all the conferences. There's a lot of talk, and if I can ask just one thing is, if I can ask the state to act on your commitments to deregulate and liberalize the skies, and let the private sector get on with it. That's my so let's stop talking and let's stop doing.
Here. I think we can give all a bit of applause to that sentiment. Thank you very much. We've come to the end of our session, and we want to just get the message from the Slido. If it can come up. So, sustainable passenger demand and market fundamentals. Would the panel agree? I think so. Thanks very much, everyone. Thank you. Oh, right.
If you just pose at the end of the runway for a photo before we go. All of you down there on runway 26. There we go. I think you can just about squeeze in. Please, nobody escape the perimeter. And another massive round of applause for our wonderful, wonderful panel. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you all. Julius, can I please ask you to stay on stage? Look at that. He's shocked. He's like, what have I done? What have I won? What have I lost? Thank you.
All right. I don't know what John wants me to.
And Sean, over to you.
Thanks, John. Those of you who were here yesterday, and for those of you who listen regularly to our podcast, at the end of the year, we have the AviaDev Podcast Awards, where we nominate airlines in various categories. And last year, one of our categories was Best Incremental Route Expansion from an African or a foreign carrier into Africa. And the winner of that, by a very narrow margin, would just beat out South African Airways' incremental flights to Sao Paulo over the winter season, was Kenya Airways for their additional flights to London Gatwick in addition to Heathrow. So I'm going to ask Beramji to come on and join me up here for the presentation, as well as Martin and the team from London Gatwick to come on up and present this award to Julius.
Let's go to the end. Come to the end. So yeah, we're delighted to have the London Gatwick team here as well. So it's just the perfect opportunity to show and a real display that the world is coming to Africa. You no longer have to go to the world. Thank you all.
Thanks. And once again, if you're not yet listening to the podcast, you should be. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and everything. Just search AviaDev Podcast, and you won't regret it.
I've already done the pitch, Sean, so thank you. Yeah. It is free, by the way. It's completely free. But thank you so much. Thank you, Sean, for doing that. And thank you, Julius, and congratulations. And great to hear there's even more expansion on that route as well. And great to have you guys with us. Okay. We are now going to come to a really, really, really interesting session. AviaDev, what we want to do here is we want to uncover the gold. We want to find those routes that don't exist yet, but absolutely should. Now, 4 years ago at an AFRA conference, I met the next presenter, and we hatched a plan together to deliver the report that you are about to see. So you are the first people on the globe to see this report. We did this last year. This is the third year of this report. It is the premiere that I know has used up many of this gentleman's evenings, but I know it's going to be 100% worth it. So, yeah, without further ado, please allow me to introduce Geert Lemaire, who is the Airbus's Market Intelligence and Consulting Director, to come up and take us through the report. Geert, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, John. Thank you very much for that. Good morning, everybody. My name is Geert Lemaire. I work in Airbus marketing department based in Toulouse in France. And actually, I'm a member of a team of about 15 people with both internal and external roles. The external role we do is to screen the market, to try to stay on top of trends in the market, to understand what is happening in the market, and to use these insights to work together with airlines in the development of their long-term strategies in terms of network development, route development, and then, of course, fleet development. So today I'm here following indeed a cooperation that we started doing a couple of years ago with AviaDev, and it's actually an honor for me to be back and to present you today parts of the third issue of the Unserved Routes report that we prepared ahead of this conference. All right, so before I go into the presentation itself, I want to clarify, because I know there's some people who are really into numbers in this room, that the report is valid for a period from October 2024 to September 2025. The reason for that is that we need to have access to detailed data to do these reports, and as such, it takes a while before these detailed data become available. All right? This being said, the second thing I want to add is that we use external data. So this is not data that we make up ourselves. We basically buy Sabre data for everything that is traffic related, and we buy OAG data for everything which is schedules and capacity. All right? So this being said, the 3 reports are available on the airbus.com website. You can go to Airbus in Africa, and you will be able to find them there. Scroll down to the bottom of the page to find the old issues, and in the middle of the page, you will find this report. I have a QR code at the end of the presentation as well, which you can scan to actually get access to it. All right. I brought the 321 XLR model, and it's on the runway, ready for takeoff. Those people who listened very carefully to John's speech yesterday evening heard that you could drop your business card in the bowl on our Airbus stand. So we'll do a lucky draw at the end of my presentation, and the lucky person who gets it, well, walks home with the 321 XLR model. Good. This being said, let's have a look at the top 10 unserved routes to, from, and within sub-Saharan Africa, starting first with those to and from sub-Saharan Africa, where we see indeed no big change compared to last year, where Harare, London is still the top unserved route, where Mumbai to Johannesburg is the second most important unserved route. Nothing changed there. But down in the list, we actually have quite a number of new unserved city pairs popping up, most important of which is Lagos to Agunju. Okay? So the traffic is significantly picking up. It's definitely a result of the post-COVID effect disappearing, and therefore, indeed, traffic picking up significantly. Nevertheless, there's quite a number of important unserved city pairs that actually move up in the list, like, for instance, Kinshasa to Dubai, which is quite an important one, honestly. There's significant growth in there. Cape Town, Brussels is back in there too. Now, we really need to start doing something about that, because this one is in there. Brussels is very close to my heart because I'm Belgian. Nevertheless, this connectivity there between Cape Town and Brussels is missing today, so I invite Paul and indeed Brussels Airlines, if they are in the room, to have a chat afterwards and go into details about it. Good. There's also a couple of unserved city pairs that disappear, of course, from the top 10, and most important one is NTB London. We mentioned that last year because the route got served with a non-stop flight from Uganda Airlines just before AviaDev conference. Lagos to New York is now served with a seasonal flight. And then Nairobi to Washington, actually traffic fell back to the levels where it were before, because last year they had quite an important growth. Now, we're definitely very happy to have the people, the delegation from Washington Airport with us today, because we'll probably hear a bit more about it later on in Sean's panel. Good. Inside Africa, I am personally very amazed myself by Cape Town to Lagos. The traffic is exploding there. I'll show you more in detail afterwards in the presentation. We have 2 new routes in there, Abuja, Nairobi, Bamako, Brazzaville. And then Abidjan Douala now is also served by Kenya Airways as a tag-in flight from the flight to Douala from Nairobi. So that is, there is some movements in the list. It's not overwhelming. It's not that it's entirely different. Nevertheless, if you dig deeper below the surface and you go look into what is happening on these city pairs, then you see that there's fierce competition happening between airlines. People are actually fighting to be in these markets, of course, connecting traffic still via their hubs. If you read the reports, you will find much more details on that in there. Good. Now, last year, in the AviaDev conference, I was presenting indeed the unserved route from Entebbe to London, which at that moment just got announced by Uganda Airlines to become a non-stop flight. And they launched it back in May, and the effect of which is visible in this chart. We're basically looking into the different bars, which each of them represent a month of non-directional O&D traffic. going back from January 2023 to the latest data we have available, which was October 2025. Now, of course, we don't have the full year of data, but we can at least look into the data we already have available. And what do we see in there? Well, if you look into the green bars at the end, that's Uganda Airlines picking up traffic. They actually stimulate traffic significantly, and they also capture back a lot of connecting traffic on the OND. So in total, over the 5 months of period of 5 months that we have available, we arrive at about 9,500 non-directional passengers. If you compare that to the same periods the year before and 2 years before, then what we see is that we have an increase of about 3,000 passengers every month, which is a 50% increase in traffic. So without any doubt, the conclusion from there is that if you look into these bars, if you look into the trends, it's clear that when you open a non-stop flight, first of all, you capture back connecting traffic, but definitely you activate a lot of latent demand in the market, people that would never travel, that now take this non-stop flight. Good. It is important because we picked up that Air Zimbabwe is now going to launch Harare to London. Remember the very first, most important unserved route in the top 10? Well, they will launch a non-stop flight with the 330-200 from 1st July onwards. And John, if you allow me, I would be very happy to be back, of course, next year to show some more insights on that route. Thank you for the invitation, by the way. All right, let's get back to some serious stuff. Number of routes to, from, and within sub-Saharan Africa, where we have a frequency of at least 3 flights per week. Why 3 flights a week? Because, well, if we consider people traveling a lot for work, you want flexibility, and that would be kind of seen as a minimum flexibility required to travel. Now, back in 2024, there were 717 of these routes, so flying to, from, or within sub-Saharan Africa, 3 times a week or more. Let's look what happens between or in the way to 2025 to see if that was growing, decreasing, just staying stable, or whatever. First of all, 12 new routes were opened with at least 3 frequencies per week in that region. 7 were closed. There were 68 routes that actually saw an increase to a frequency beyond 3 frequencies per week, but there were equally 62 that actually saw a frequency decrease, to end up with 728 routes in 2025. So that means a full year of route development in sub-Saharan Africa resulted into 11 extra routes with a frequency of minimum 3 flights per week. 11. All right? Guys, what are we doing here? Let's do something better than this. Let's be a little bit more ambitious, I would say, because 11 routes in this massive region is really nothing. All right? Good. Let's put things in context. So we have the 728 routes, sub-Saharan Africa in 2025. For the whole continent of Africa, we have some 400 more routes, 400, 500 more routes. Compared to Latin America, we're about at the same level. So John, if you're thinking about launching another AviaDev event, that's the way to go, I would say. Good. Compared to Indian subcontinent and the Middle East, we're a bit higher. The regions are smaller, however. But watch this, guys. This is what we call connectivity. So I think we have quite some work ahead. And where we can immediately conclude, like, okay, sub-Saharan Africa definitely is underserved today, it also means that there is significant opportunity to make the business grow and to expand our networks. Right. What can we do about these expanding networks? Well, the positive news is we are in a business that is only growing. Indeed, I remember the speech from Daniel this morning where everything was negative and bad, etc. That's short term. If you look back into how traffic has developed from 1975 onwards to today, which is a statistic that I did not enter into the presentation because of time reasons, we see that traffic is only increasing. And indeed, yes, there is some noise on the curve for crisis left and right. Then there was, of course, the deep COVID crisis. But nevertheless, traffic today is back, all right? So that means that we are in a growing business, and if we project into the future, it will only grow further. So Airbus makes a global market forecast every year based on economic development of countries, population development, concentration of people in urban agglomerations, trade increasing, etc. I'm not going to enter further into details on how we do this, but the results for Africa in terms of major traffic flows, what we see is that for the next 20 years, we actually project a growth in many of these main traffic flows going beyond 5%. And I specifically mentioned this 5% because 5% means that traffic doubles in 15 years. All right? Now, if we see all these growth figures in there, and if we see that the majority is going beyond 5%, that means that we really need to plan for major traffic growth to, from, and within sub-Saharan Africa. Now, air transport is a critical contributor to socio-economic development, which we, of course, all want to create in sub-Saharan Africa. So therefore, we have the task to develop route and networks. And with these figures in mind, I think everybody in this room has a very important job to do. All right? One specific message for fleet planners in the room. Please don't size your fleet for tomorrow, but think long-term. Okay? Size the fleet and the capacity of your aircraft for this long-term growth, because we need to be prepared. We can't simply change fleets overnight. Good. We're going to have a look into our unserved city pairs, where we have for each of these unserved city pairs inside sub-Saharan Africa, 3 bars, which actually represent the 12-year periods of the 3 reports that I've made so far. And what we see indeed is that nearly each of these unserved routes have been growing significantly since we started doing so. So we see Cape Town, Lagos. Look at this, an average annual growth, because these are CAGRs, of 70% and more. All right? So that is significant. Maybe you say, yeah, it's an exception, but look at this. Bamako to Brazzaville, Dakar to Nairobi, they have double-digit growth figures. So that means, even if we have kind of slow movement in creation of new routes, the traffic behind is significantly growing. So that is a positive sign, and we really need to jump on that and believe in it for the future in order to expand networks. So all in all, 7 out of 8 evaluated routes so far have seen indeed growth in the 3-year period. I did the same for the routes to and from sub-Saharan Africa, where you also see many routes ending up with double-digit growth. So that is really promising, and we really need to take that into account and really think positively, rather than being restricted by fears in developing possibly new routes. Good. I brought these charts because they are really indicative for what the business is about. These are charts that show the growth for Kinshasa, Dubai, and Harare, Dubai, back from 2010 to today, to the latest figures we have available. Now look at this, and this is exactly the point I want to make, is that, of course, we know today's traffic, and we know what are the short-term opportunities, and if we focus too much on that without planning ahead and really being ambitious for future growth, long-term growth, then we may miss opportunities. Who back in 2010 would have thought that Kinshasa, Dubai would grow like this today, right? The same for Harare to Dubai. Quite an interesting route. There's a lot about it in the report, so please feel free and have a look at it. Now look at this. Etihad said to us recently that it's time for Africa. Well, we do fully agree with that, all right? They will not fly to Dubai, of course not, They will do it from Abu Dhabi, but they will start serving both routes. And why can they do that? Because they planned ahead long term. They anticipated possible growth in the market. They have been aggressive. And look, they are in the position to take the opportunity when the traffic is picking up. There's more examples. Lagos to Toronto, Douala to Dubai, Cape Town to Brussels. Cape Town to Brussels, guys. Cape Town to Brussels. London, Zanzibar, all have the same profile. All right? So there's a lot to be done there. And we need to build long-term. Okay, yes, of course, we have the tactical planning. We need to move ahead. We need to make sure that tomorrow we survive, but we definitely have to project long-term into the future because the market is growing. So if we want to be part of it, we need to be prepared. Good. Now, what are we going to do then if we have to develop Sub-Saharan Africa's network? Well, we can have a look at where the traffic is today. As you see on this chart, about a third is in domestic traffic, counting non-directional O&D passengers. 16% is traffic that flies beyond borders, but inside Sub-Saharan Africa. And then about half of the traffic is going to and from Sub-Saharan Africa. Now, all in all, this represented in the studied period about 88 million people, of which 14 million people approximately traveled within Sub-Saharan Africa. Now you say like, okay, 14 million, wow, it's quite a big number. And therefore, I want to put these numbers in perspective. Look at this. If you go to Birmingham Airport and you read their website, how many passengers have they handled over 1 year quite recently? 14 million. Hamburg Airport in Europe, 14 million. Naples Airport in Italy, 14 million people. So that means that the traffic inside Sub-Saharan Africa is, for this whole sub-region, the same number of passengers as handled by one single secondary airport in Europe. All right? I think we should be more ambitious than that too. No? So that's the second reason to really increase ambition. So yes, we need to bring people to and from Sub-Saharan Africa, absolutely detrimental, but expanding the regional network is definitely paramount. Good. It's all great to talk about, we should have expand, but there are a couple of challenges. And what are these challenges? First of all, distance. Flying from Cape Town to Cairo is the same as flying from London to Beijing. It's a very long flight. Flying from the Dakar to the other side of Africa is actually the same as flying from Dublin to Vancouver. So it's a long distance as well. So distance definitely is a challenge. It's kind of the terror of Sub-Saharan Africa or the entire African continent. Secondly, the traffic to, from, and within Sub-Saharan Africa is definitely prone to seasonality. That means that from these graphs, which actually show for the intra-regional traffic to and from the region and the domestic traffic, how does it evolve over the year on average? Well, what you see is that there's two peak periods, somewhere in the beginning of the year, somewhere towards the end of the year. And in between, airlines need to survive. Okay? So that's definitely a challenge. Last but not least, that's what we hear all the time when talking to airlines in Africa. Yeah, but the demand is not really there, and I don't see the opportunity, and voila, so therefore let's wait and see and do nothing. Good. We'll talk about that later on again. Now, there are challenges, but there are definitely also opportunities. And one of these opportunities is related to premium traffic. Why is it an opportunity? Let's have a look first at the global level, so worldwide. What is the split between premium and economy traffic? 4% premium traffic, so that includes first class, business class, and premium economy. Represents 4% of all people traveling only every year. The rest is economy traffic. Now, to put that in context, for Sub-Saharan Africa, the split is slightly more advantageous for the premium traffic because we have 6% premium traffic. And you say, okay, it's 2% only, but 2% in this market is important. Moreover, when we look into the unserved city pairs, we don't talk about 6%, we talk about double-digit percentages. It's 10%, 40%, 16% on those routes listed here, all right? And why is it important? Because in order to make a route work, of course, yeah, the business needs to be profitable. Now, premium traffic actually fuels the revenues on your flight and are therefore a big differentiator. Nevertheless, African people who travel in premium class expect a physically different seat. They want comfort, and guess what? I'm a marketeer, I have to say this. You can find such comfort on the Airbus aircraft, of course. So winning premium traffic demands a real business class seat, a physically different business class seat. This being said, there's another opportunity. I'm not going to explain the whole chart, I just want you to look at the green line, because that represents how belly cargo inside sub-Saharan Africa has evolved or has developed over time. We go back to 2015, excuse me, and what we see is that in the 10 years period of this graph, the belly cargo carried has doubled inside sub-Saharan Africa. All right? Why is that important? Exactly because it's another contributor to making the business case work. Because if indeed demand is low, and voila, if you hesitate, in Africa, roads, rail work, etc., is not the most developed in the world, so that is the opportunity. Try to capture belly cargo, and guess what? The Airbus aircraft are capable to carry this belly cargo. So belly cargo can give this extra boost to your business case and can make your business case work. Good. This chart, I think, is most important in the whole presentation, so I'll explain it a little bit in detail. And I see John watching back, I have 1 minute 30, I will slightly overrun, but I'm not the first one today. All right? Good. So what did we do here? We actually looked into all flights performed between July 2025 and June 2026, so as we are here, and with the planning information we have access to in OAG. And we actually listed all these routes in distance categories. So each time 250 nautical miles apart. So each bar represents the flights performed in percentage and the breakdown between regional, propeller aircraft, single aisle, wide-body aircraft, and then the very large aircraft towards the end of the graph. Now, what do we see in here? There's one particular zone that attracts attention, which is this one, where we have the category going from about 3,000 nautical miles up to 4,100, 4,200 nautical miles. Well, in this category, what we see is that nearly exclusively wide-body aircraft are dispatched. I didn't want to make the presentation too heavy, but what you see in there is that on all these routes that are in this category, or the majority of the routes in this category, we end up with frequencies of 2 or 3 flights per week. All right? So that means, yes, there are flights, but the connectivity is not optimized. Well, why do I bring this up? It's related to this model. It's because that is the category where the 321 XLR will offer significant advantages, and we believe strongly that for African carriers, we definitely need to look into this territory. Why is that? Look at this. Inside this dotted box, we had 107 different routes, of which 67 had a frequency of less than 3 per week. All right? That's a significant part. Wide bodies, okay. If you switch to 321 XLRs, you can easily increase frequencies, improve connectivity without putting massive number of extra seats in the market. Because that's the fear of the airlines. If they put too much capacity in the market, load factors are too low, yields collapse, and that's what nobody wants. All right? Good. There's plenty of routes like this, like for instance, Malpensa to Zanzibar, Rome to Zanzibar, just to name a couple, Istanbul to the Seychelles, then Luanda to Porto, Well, these are flights that are currently offered, but not with a daily frequency. Switching to the 321 XLR gives you that option. As I said, there's challenges, there's opportunities, and there's a solution. That's the solution, if you ask me. Extended range capability for the 321 XLR, optimized capacity. In other words, we don't put massive amounts of seats in the market when we start flying frequently with the aircraft. We have premium passenger comfort, a real business class seat on board. We have belly cargo capacity. We have single aisle operating costs. That's very important too. So risk to do the flight is pretty low. And then we have operational flexibility, because guess what? We can train pilots on 321 XLRs to also fly 330s and 350s and even 380s and switch in between them as needed. Right. Watch this. It's not inside Southern Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa, but very close to the region, there's operators engaging in this aircraft type. Saudi Arabian Airlines, Saudia, they just took delivery of the first 321 XLR just a couple of weeks ago. Indigo has it already in operation. And the reason they took these aircraft is to open new routes, long routes, where they don't want to put massive capacity in the market, therefore reduce risk of operation, and to also indeed increase frequencies on a couple of routes, and that's particularly the case for Saudi Arabia. I mentioned these two operators because I expect these aircraft to pop up soon in Africa. All right? Now watch this. Air Seychelles has understood the case. They actually recently got the approval from their cabinet of ministers to move ahead with their long-term fleet planning and to expand internationally. And they are currently working, it's not finalized yet, the way I understood it, latest information available, but they definitely want to engage into a lease agreement with the 321 XLR. And it's a very interesting case because it's a small airline. They don't have a major network, a massive network, but they take this aircraft as an opportunity to indeed increase their network, to increase exposure to different markets, and therefore, in principle, reduce the risk of their operations. John, this is the conclusion. It's done. What is a final conclusion of my presentation? First of all, commercial air transport definitely is a dynamic industry, so we need to stay on top of things to act swiftly short-term, but we definitely need to think long-term and build the flexibility into our fleets to capture the opportunities when they come along. Secondly, the future is all about growth. If there's one thing I want you to remember when walking out of this room, please remember that future is all about growth. And this definitely for Sub-Saharan Africa. Launching new routes, well, I don't have to explain that, I think. Improves connectivity, stimulates traffic, as we showed before, and drives socio-economic development. And then last but not least, Airbus aircraft feature indeed unique range capacity capabilities and can definitely enable building profitable routes in your network. From small to very large capacity, from short range to ultra long range, every route has an Airbus aircraft, all right? We are here today and tomorrow. Please come along, have a chat with us. We're definitely ready to talk to you. And voilà. That's the end of my presentation. Let me tell you that right now, the new report that I issued for this year is available on airbus.com. You can scan the QR code if you want to have access to it. And the old versions are also available on the website. You can simply scroll down the page and find them there too. So that is it. Thank you very much for your attention. And if you allow me, we can now do the lucky draw for those people who participated in the game, if we can call it that way. So therefore, I would like to ask Clara to come up to the stage and help me in doing so. All right, ready?
Good morning, everyone.
So, there we go. Lucky draw.
Richard Owens from London Gatwick is the winner.
Is he in the room? All right, good. We have a winner. Please come on stage. All right, very good, thank you.
I'll take this.
All right. So, Richard, here you are. Please take it like this. No, don't touch the engines.
Never.
Nor the tail. All right, very good. There you go. All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Welcome. Good luck with it. All right.
It's amazing, amazing. I know. Thank you. Well done, Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clara.
Do this.
During the year, we have multiple catch-ups. He shows me these spreadsheets that mean absolutely nothing to me, but it's just incredible how much work he puts in. You know, he has a day job and puts the work into this. Is incredibly passionate about Africa and puts so much work into that report. So make sure you download it. There will be a link as well in the email you'll get this evening, so you can get there if you miss the QR code, or go over to the Airbus stand and the guys will be able to help you. But it's an amazing report to show where the opportunities are. Now, the next panel is, and growth in our industry is not all about new routes. And to get those, or not all new routes, that they can't get there without the new technologies that you need to obviously employ to improve efficiency and support what we all know and what we saw yesterday and today, a very fragile bottom line for the airlines. So to take you through the technology panel, leading this panel is somebody with more than 2 decades of experience in the travel, aviation, and hospitality industries. She knows how the industry ticks. She is an inspirational leader, somebody I wanted to get to do something like this for many years. You, I'm sure, all know her as well. And she's been recognized as one of the 30 most influential women in African tourism and hospitality 2026. So we have a celebrity amongst us. And as I say, I've wanted to bring her on as a moderator for some time. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Candy Kasson-Kamona from Harm Air to the stage to take you through the next panel. Oh, you're this side, Candy.
I'm here. Thanks. Yeah. Good morning, or is it afternoon? Good morning. We are not going to start this way with my panel. I know we are sitting between you and your lunch, but please indulge us. It's going to be a very interesting session. So, as John has alluded to the topic for today, allow me to just sort of set the scene. So, we are operating in the most complex aviation environments we've seen in years. Geopolitical tensions, from shifting global alliances to conflicts impacting key air corridors, which are disrupting routes, increasing fuel costs, reshaping global traffic flows, and placing increasing operational pressures on both airlines and airports. We've seen how quickly dynamics can shift between major aviation hubs, whether in the Middle East or across transatlantic markets. And the reality is, when global aviation is disrupted, African airlines and airports don't sit outside it. We feel it often more intensely. At the just ended IATA session, according to IATA, with the AFRA conference, which took place in Johannesburg about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we learned, or we were told, that African aviation has seen a growth in the last few months of up by 11%, of which our contribution on that is on a global front of only 2%. Please bear in mind Africa's population, which is currently sitting at 1.6 billion people, and our contribution is not excellent. We've all heard these numbers, and we know how we feel about them. And airports across the continent are equally under pressure, balancing infrastructure demands, passenger expectations, digital transformation, and commercial sustainability, often within highly constrained operational environments. So this is the contradiction that we are dealing with. Demand is growing, the industry is evolving, but profitability and operational efficiency across Africa's aviation ecosystems are still lagging behind. Which brings us to the real issue. It's not whether revenue opportunities exist, it's whether we are capturing them fully. And it's not whether costs are high, It's whether we are managing them intelligently. Because today, airlines and airports are no longer competing only on scale or location. They are competing on how effectively they operate, how intelligently they use technology and data, how effectively they monetize passengers and partnerships, and how quickly they adapt to changing market realities. So let me put a question directly to the room here. Are we building aviation businesses that are fit for today's realities, or are we still operating yesterday's models in a market that has already changed? Today's discussion, how are airports and airlines unlocking new revenue and cutting costs, is not a theory. It's about where is money being made, where is money being lost, and what needs to change now. So let me ask my panelists to join me on stage. Can I please have the list of, thank you very much. Can I have Roger, Benjamin, Patrick, and Hassan to please join me on stage? A round of applause, please, for them. Thank you. And then can we have Slido as well, please, so that you can all tell us what your thoughts are. We are missing? No, we are not. Great. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me. Roger, I'm going to start with you. Great. So Q is a specialist airline technology company focused on providing cloud-based reservations, inventory, departure control, e-commerce, revenue management solutions. Your company is particularly known for supporting small to mid-sized carriers, including several airlines from Latin America and Africa, with scalable systems that enable rapid growth and lower IT costs. Q has built a strong reputation for helping emerging and regional airlines deploy enterprise-grade systems without burden of legacy infrastructure for African low-cost carriers in this case. So please, could you help us understand, if an airline on the African continent wanted to operate on low costs very quickly, what is it that they are supposed to be focusing on, and why isn't that being prioritized?
Well, thank you very much, Candy, and thank you for everybody. Nice to be here with you. Geez, that is a big question, and I think the scope of that is very large. So I think I will address it from a PSS point of view. So we all have technology, we all have PSS systems, but one of the things that we observe sometimes here and other parts of the world where we deploy our system is that operators may not be using the functionality that they have. And the functionality that they have can, in fact, be lowering their costs if it's used. And why? Why are they not using that? And that goes back to another problem. So having been in flight operations for a couple of decades and commercial for a couple of decades, I can say I have experienced this many times in many places. Very often, the commercial department of an operator is not necessarily resourced appropriately. And so it's really important that obviously flight operations have all the tools and the toys that they need, but commercial also needs those things. And it goes back further than that. It goes back to recruitment and making sure that you have adequate skills brought into your environment and that you invest in training. We sometimes work with mid-size operators and small operators who sometimes are very excited and get very invested in it, but there are others that perhaps don't get so invested in it, and they think that perhaps we arrive to deliver system training and that will solve their problems. And of course, systems training will show you how to use systems, but if you don't have the people with the knowledge and the training and the development in place, it's hard for them to use the system. So I think that to reduce costs, number one, you have to have the appropriate system and not too big a system. Some small operators have huge systems which they barely can afford and often can't afford. So making sure you have the right technology in place. I think investing in the people and providing lots of training. One of the things I would encourage an operator to do if they're moving to a new PSS is to really become fully involved in the PSS way before, a year before, more before, and have the opportunity to look at how you're operating today, what the system can do for you, and developing your own in-house training and training programs to do that. So that's from a technology side. So when you have those people in place and they're trained properly, then using the system becomes less of a problem, and then you can really start to reduce costs. So you can reduce costs just by looking at how you use the system, monitoring what travel agents and sales are occurring and how they're using the technology and the cost that's coming in, looking at queues, for example, in a system where that's a very necessary thing. And of course, in today's day and age, driving AI.
Gotcha.
So AI is also very important, whether we love it or we hate it, whether we embrace it or it frightens us in certain aspects of life. It's here to stay. And so I think it's really important that people get on the bandwagon with AI technology, because that starts to affect the customer journey. And when we see an enhancement in customer journey, that also equates to revenue.
Thank you very much for that. You touched on AI, and we're going to sort of all dive into it a bit later. So Sita, Benjamin. Sita is the world's leading specialist in air transportation, air communication as well, and IT, servicing over 2,500 customers across airlines, airports, and governments in more than 200 countries and territories. Your solutions span passenger processing, baggage, airport operations, data exchange, border management, and sustainability analytics. Sita sits at the center of the global ecosystem with visibility across airlines, airports, and governments. Based on your data, and I assume it's a lot of data. It's a lot of data based on who your customers are. With your data, where airlines are losing money today? Because, I mean, there's a lot of talk on where are we losing money, what is happening with the money, and people just can't see the profitability that is happening there. So on that basis, using your data, where are airlines losing money today, and is it on operational issues or fragmented systems or just poor customer experience?
Well, I would say all of the above, and if you have more to list, we can go on. Okay. I've seen the results of the poll already. I think disruption is a key one. I would name fuel, I would name fragmented systems. But in the end, what I take is that the biggest loss is about us waiting. Waiting to be bold, waiting to be brave, and not being cautious and conservative. I really liked your intro when you mentioned, are we operating as per yesterday's dimension, but a little bit faster? Yeah. And that won't work in the future. And we've seen the last few years on the vendor side, so all of us here need to innovate, especially AI, machine learning, but then we need to co-work with our customers to test these solutions, to measure the ROI, and then to trust the ROI. Absolutely. And that's how we get there. And I would say today, I hope we discuss three things. How do we create a better baseline? How do we beat the plan? Because we can beat the plan if we plan months, weeks, days ahead, so as per today's operations. And then how do we get back on plan? So these three things, I think, in the last few years with technology and services and solutions, we have a next wave of cost-cutting that could come with that.
Right. Patrick, Nuvei. So Nuvei is a global payments technology company that helps businesses accept and optimize payments across multiple channels and markets. In aviation, Nuve helps airlines turn payments from a back office function into a commercial advantage. Through local payments acceptance, intelligent routing, fraud prevention, FX solutions, and payment optimization, you help carriers improve conversion, reduce revenue leakage, and better serve travelers across global and local markets. How much revenue are airlines typically losing through failed transactions, fraud, and limited payment options?
Thanks, Candy. The way you already described Nuve, you can typically feel when I get the question on a birthday party, what kind of work do you do? It's quite difficult to explain in a simple way in just a few seconds. But how much airlines are losing on revenues, you cannot attack a dollar amount to that question. Because it depends on the airline, the payment mix, but also the experience. And when I started to work enabling online payments for airlines, which started in 1999, it was a black box. It was a black box. You push in a transaction and you wait on ought or not ought. And that was it. The reality now is that airlines that create the most value are those who take the ownership of the payment strategy by understanding, actively managing their payment ecosystem, how they can increase sales. And one of the airlines which I worked quite closely with is Air Arabia. It goes back for years. And those guys had that vision, hey, we got a lot of data, it goes into this black box, and we don't understand what happens in the black box. Do we have influence? And you can imagine airlines are investing heavily in aircraft. They do their analysis, study cases on routes, etc. But the black box was still not revealed. What can we do there? And Air Arabia was facing a lot of declines. And we went into the black box together. And we had the data, they had the results, and we found out by setting a couple of parameters how you process your payments, their acceptance rates went from 92% to 96%. Can you imagine as an airline, when you are processing hundreds of millions and you can increase with just 4% while you're embracing your payment strategy? So it's hard to say which airline does lose that much, but it comes down to the ownership of the payment strategy, what an airline is embracing. So payments are not really a back office function. They are a commercial driver of your revenue. And if an airline understands that, then also the customer experience can be involved to increase that.
Thank you. Okay, Hassan, Hit It. Hit It is one of the world's leading airline technology providers, serving more than 70,000 airlines globally. Your platform offers a full suite of airline solutions, including passenger service systems, which is the PSS, reservations, departure control, loyalty, accounting, and merchandising. Hit It solutions are designed to help airlines modernize distribution, increase auxiliary revenue, and improve operational efficiency. In your experience, what are the top 2 revenue opportunities airlines in Africa today are still underutilizing?
Thank you, Candy, for having me, and thank you to our hosts as well in Botswana. So, straight answer, ancillaries, heavily underutilized, and third-party, I would call them third-party partnerships. Ancillaries, you all know them, seat selection, luggage, priority boarding. I have rarely seen priority boarding offered as an option, for example. Someone might not want to pay the full business class ticket price, but they might want access to the lounge, an option to buy that access to the lounge. Third-party integrations, the easiest one would be fast track at the airport. The lanes are already there. Immigration lanes are there. Security lanes are there. Just talk to the airport, whoever you have talked to, say, can we make this lane fast track? And the same way you would charge, I mean, it would be included for business class travel, for example, but you could offer it for a few dollars as an option to a passenger. So There are many other examples. And just to give you a number, a rough number, it's anywhere between $6 to $10 per passenger, bottom line, you're leaving on the table. If you want to see, as an example, using, for example, hit it here, what we have done with Pegasus, you can go on Pegasus website as an airline, as a customer, and see what they offer as different integration and services and extra things that they sell to make money. The other important thing is that it's great to have that on your website, in your booking flow, but the same thing should be available in all your sales channels. So your travel agents should be able to sell the same things. They should be able to sell the priority boarding or seat selection or fast track, as an example. So doing those two things, I think you would recover or gain the $7 to $10 bottom line profit per passengers. And it's not complicated, really. There are many things that can be done quickly. By the way, one last note, it is not a sprint to get the $10, it's a marathon. You don't wake up second day and say, I'm making $10. It's a slow marathon, but you end up getting money per passenger, bottom line.
So I'll stay with you. If an airline wanted to implement that, just what you've said, how long would it take?
Okay, first thing, there has to be a clear vision. Okay, please don't issue an RFP for a solution until you have a clear vision of what you want to sell and when you want to sell it and how it's done. Then you probably have to also work on your internal structure. Quite often, I cannot talk about all airlines here, but I've seen quite often e-commerce under IT, the people selling tickets through travel agents, another department, and then, direct sales, nobody knows where they are, and things like that. They all have to be in one place. There has to be a clear vision with clear milestones. And then the rest of the technology is available. And by the way, just to finish on this, you can go on the IATA Retail Maturity Index website. It's a public website that will tell you which suppliers fulfill which kind of capabilities and things like that, and which airlines have done what with those capabilities. It's publicly available. It's a great piece of information.
Great.
All right?
So, Patrick, yes, please, Roger, go ahead. Yes.
I wanted to add to that. So, where air operators are larger and they file their fares through ATPCO, of course, there are over 400 different ancillary codes that are available. We support, for example, in all of our sales channels, the 400 ancillary codes. And we see operators use maybe 5, maybe not even. So if you can be creative, if you can establish partnerships, if you can put a package together for an event where you offer air, car, hotel, lounge, priority boarding, a special meal, the list is endless, but it's time for people to become creative. And again, this is one of the tools that is just not very well used, generally, I would say.
So to ask a question, if an airline wanted to have different types of auxiliaries there, does it come with the same package or you can customize it for them?
No, it comes with the same package. We support all ATPCO coded ancillaries. So there's a list, a long list, and you can do anything within that, including creating group products. So it's a tool that's there. It's just a tool that, particularly I think on the African continent, we have not yet mastered how to use. And that boils down again to creativity and a strong commercial department.
Okay. Patrick, I'm going to pull you here. With what is being talked about, I want to ask a question on smarter payments. So what impact can smarter payments strategy have on a conversion for if an airline wanted to sort of adapt it?
conversion.
Yes.
Yeah. Smarter payments. What's a smarter payment? What is, in your opinion, a smarter payment?
What is my opinion?
Yeah.
No, I'd rather let you, the expert, answer this so that you bring us to speed.
Yeah, what is smart? If it generates conversion, it's smart. If it generates revenue, it's smart. Is it increasing the customer experience at the end? It's clever, because that creates retention. So a smarter payment does do all that, but it's the way you are using it. And what I would like to point out, Candy, given the precious time we are in, what about the cost? Everybody looks at the cost. What does it cost to process a payment from A to B? And we take a look at the value and we say, that's too much. Well, what I've been learning from the last 20 years with airlines, and typically after COVID, when I was speaking with Erik Swelheim, the former CFO of KLM, he says, Patrick, it's all about cash in. The cost, I don't care anymore. It's all about cash in. I need to have my dollars on the bank account. How can you help me in that? And that said enough. That also gave me that experience of, okay, how does an airline run the treasury with payments? Is that an important element? Yes, it is. So working as an acquirer, where we are basically collecting your money, we go through a process with an airline where we will say, okay, these are the conditions. And the conditions matter. And if an acquirer is putting your conditions on a level where you don't have hold on your money because it's there for 30 days, that's cash in missing. So the business case of an airline does matter. We were referring about this yesterday as well. The business case makes a difference with an acquirer. An acquirer is a financial institution which are collecting your money and will settle your money on your bank account. And with that money you can do your hedging, that money you can do your leasing. So the business case matter. And what we have done with Nuve is that we do not judge the airline based on this Excel sheet, this accountant report. No, we judge also the human element. We would like to understand the business case. That business case tells the acquirer something about the future. And guess what? Then there is hardly any risk with an airline. We had Iceland there as an example, requested to speak with our risk and compliance team. Not based on their Excel sheet, no, based on the business case after COVID, the problems they had with the Boeing 737 MAX, the deliveries, etc. And they presented their business case. And at the end, the CFO said to my risk and compliance officer, you said, you know, when an atomic bomb explodes, do you know who will survive? No clue. He said, it's a cockroach, it's Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones, and it's Iceland there. And while you have that interaction with that airline, not because of this example, but you have that human element, you as an acquirer are better positioned to give the right conditions. And that can turn down that the settlement procedures are not in 7 days, but could be done in 1 day. And that's a particular cost where the airline can save as well, instead of considering what the cost, etc. is, or what is a smarter payment. It's
Gotcha.
the background.
Thank you very much. Benjamin, how much money is aviation losing because systems are not speaking together? And we're talking about systems here when we're talking about airlines, airports, and government systems.
Well, the answer is quite simple, it's too much.
Okay.
That's the bottom line. And at CETA, we see it every day because, as you mentioned, we sell to airlines, airports, governments, OEMs, and that question always comes back. And it gives us headaches, to be honest, because that's the real question that we need to solve. That said, I think not just for us, I think as an industry, I think we do much better, and we see data platforms, we see APIs, and I think stakeholders now understand the ROI of sharing data to the other party to get something back in return for the ecosystem. And one example I have in mind, I've seen on the market solutions, you can grab information from ANSPs, route charges, from airports, ground charges, ground handlers, catering, baggage, fuel, mix that with MRO information. You put all this together, and now we can assess the day-to-day or monthly billings and then spot errors in that. And that's something that a couple of years ago we were just lacking the data, and now it's shifting slowly to we have the data, what can we do with this data? And that's just an example, but there's many others where we see now solutions that are cross-data source, airlines, airports. It's at the beginning, I concede, but I'm quite optimistic on where things are going with these examples.
So we are all speaking the same language, but where is the disconnect? Why don't we understand that data needs to be shared for everyone? What do you find is the lacking connector there?
I go back to the ROI. I think we need, so us vendors need to be better at explaining or quantifying the ROI, and then we need to co-work with the customers to validate, test, and then trust this ROI. And I would say the best performers will be the one that get the easy equation, what a customer pay gets 5 times in return in savings. And I can see this for fuel, I can see this for disruptions, I can see it in for invoices. There's many new topics that we see, but I think it comes down to ROI. And the CEO panel mentioned it. It's data, and then we need to make use cases with ROIs behind them.
So this is a question to all of you. It's AI, and I think you alluded to it, Roger, earlier on in your answer in the introduction question. So my question is, what's the difference between companies using AI strategically and those simply using it as a buzzword? What are the dangers to doing that? Maybe we'll start with you.
So you can use AI. At the beginning, let's all agree on one thing. AI is really good at automating and speeding things, getting answers. It is not always correct, and it's not one size fits all. Yeah. Yes. So there are examples, actually, stories about people firing all the customer service department and replacing them with AI voices, and it was a disaster in terms of customer experience and actually financial disaster for those companies. So it's good for certain things. For example, there are examples at HITIT we are looking at dynamic pricing, which is based on customer understanding, customer profiling, unifying those profiles, because they can come from different places. You have to and you have to be able to identify, this is the same person that I have in my customer database. Things like that, yes, you will have AI helping speed things up when you are dealing with your customer, when you are dealing with pricing, and even I can foresee, although we are not in that space, for operational maintenance and predictability and things like that. But it does not replace people. It complements their expertise to make things go faster for certain type of tasks.
Wonderful.
Yes, I would like to add to that.
Well, this is where we live it right here on BTV News. This is AviaDev Africa 2026, held under the theme Gateway to Opportunities. This conference, of course, serves as a key platform for discussions on air connectivity, route development, and the future of aviation.